Very informative. And, ooh, that microphone got loud
Yeah.
real quick, didn't it?
Coming in
That
hot.
means it's time to move on, I think. Anthony, you ready? Everybody? We're all good? Okay. All right.
Can't get the agenda.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of Winter Springs regular City Commission meeting of Monday, April 14th, 2025. Christian, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Kevin McCann.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Cade Resnick.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Diaz.
Present.
Commissioner Victoria Bruce.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Baker.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Caruso.
Here.
City Manager Kevin Sweet.
Present.
City Attorney Anthony A. Garganese.
Here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And let's see then if, I believe our good friend Bob Melhorn will lead us in a short prayer. If we can all stand, we'll then follow with the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, Bob.
Good evening. Great to see everybody. Good evening. Let's pray. Holy One, be present among us this evening, we ask. You have placed us in such a beautiful place to live, with its good weather and beautiful landscape and industrious citizens. We are so richly blessed. Remind us of how good we have it as we consider some of the decisions we face this evening. Give us wisdom for matters that will affect this community for years to come. We are reminded that this is a holy week for more than one faith, and that reminds us of how much you love all people. We're also blessed to know that the Girl Scouts are here this evening, and that is a wonderful thing as well. We ask your blessing upon our mayor, our commissioners, our city manager, our city attorney, our city clerk, all who work for this fine city, and we ask that you would continue to protect and prosper all who call Winter Springs their home. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we do not have awards or presentations, but we do have a lot of blue forms filled out today. So, and again, welcome, young ladies. It is nice to see you. Nice to have you here.
Is there a microphone?
Let them stand up and.
Is this microphone over?
Sure, before we go to public input? Yeah. And what brings you ladies to our meeting this evening? Anyone want to speak for you? Yeah, why don't you step up to the microphone? Introduce yourself. What's your name?
My name is Veronica. We are here to I don't know how to word it. Get a crosswalk across from Moss Road to Dolphin Road, and also a wildlife crossing sign.
Oh, that's interesting.
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Point of privilege, Mayor.
Yeah.
Just to kind of fill you in on what the Girl Scouts are up to. We worked together earlier this year. They came out, did a tour of City Hall with me here, as well as we talked about some of their issues that were important to them for safety, having to do with also wildlife crossing, as well as a crosswalk out in D1. And they were here today to advocate for it. City manager's been working with me on this, and we're going to actually have a crosswalk put in, thanks to their strong advocacy and help and bringing to our attention some safety issues near Moss Park. So, they're going to tell us a little bit about that tonight. So really exciting.
Okay, so are they participating with the blue forms now? Okay, great. So I'll just kind of run through them and see. I'm just taking them in the order that I have them, and we'll move on. Thanks. And Mr. Sweet, that's something that you're aware, prepared?
Yes,
the
Mr. Mayor.
crossword? Could
Yes.
you talk with them? Okay.
As Commissioner Diaz stated, we've been working with them and have farmed that out. We do have that park closure with regards to with the work that's being done, but as soon as that is available, we'll be working with that, and the team is already planning and lining that up.
Thanks. Okay, well then I'm just going to take these blue forms as I have them before me. And Mr. Ma, you can be first?
I have it's on a specific agenda.
Oh, I apologize. Thanks. Is it so 400? It is a public hearing. Great. Thank you for clarifying. I should have stopped and looked. Okay. Then it looks like Olivia. Olivia, welcome. And it's Olivia Wade, is it?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Olivia Wade. I live at 213 North Alderwood Street, and I am here representing the Junior Scouts of Girl Scout Troop 869 for our Bronze Award. Some native and terrestrial species in Gee Creek area include turtles, ducks, and other land animals like bear, deer, armadillos, and other wildlife. And many want to cross the road. Like, have you heard the joke of why the playful chicken crossed the Moss Road? He wanted to get to the other side. Get it? But he can't get there if he is run over. As you know, we would like to put in a crosswalk across Moss Road by the park and have signs installed about pedestrians as well as wildlife crossing there. Animals that live in and around Gee Creek by Moss Park should be safe as the kids who come to play. And a crosswalk and signs could help the cars slow down in that area. There are two ends of the sidewalk that go to the road. It's a perfect place for a crosswalk. We care about this community, and we know you do too. So we are petitioning for a crosswalk and signs to be added to the intersection near Moss and Dolphin Roads.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. It sounds like through help with the commissioner and the city manager, we are well on our way. Nice job. I will, real quick, before we move on to the next one, it looks like we have somebody else is going to be up. Veronica has filled out a blue form as well. But just real quick, we'll be limiting comments to 3 minutes, and we would ask, if you're an adult, that you state your name and address for the record. If you're over 18, your address is helpful, and groups of organizations are limited to 5 minutes. So with that being said, I apologize. Veronica, thank you for the patience. Welcome back.
Hello, my name is Veronica. I'm with Troop 869, and I am here to try and convince the community to add a crosswalk and a wildlife crossing sign from Moss Road to Dolphin Road. It's extremely crucial to do this because I've heard stuff from my reliable sources that children and animals cross those roads multiple times a day. They also have said that the cars don't try to stop for anyone or anything. If there was crosswalks and animal crossings, people would stop for others more, and it would help the people and the animals a lot. Thank you for your time and your support on this project.
Thank you. And, thanks. We have Rylan?
Hi, I'm Rylan. I'm representing the Girl Scout Troop 869, and I believe that there should be a crosswalk on Moss Park, specifically Dolphin Road. Kids just want to go to the park safely. Also, there is a creek, and there are animals such as ducks trying to get by. It's unfair that just a couple speeding cars can ruin someone's day. I understand if this isn't possible, but you could make someone's day. Since you are part of the legislative branch, you could use tax money. Learn that in school. Animals like my friend Wolfie here would like to cross the road safely. Imagine you're in a car and you see my cute friend Wolfie. You wouldn't want to run him over, would you? Thank you for your time.
And Christian, I would, at the point of order, we have a couple with no last names on them. Is it okay? Do we need a last name on it? Just, it says Troop 869. We're okay with that?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, thanks. Good deal. Okay,
Children.
then we will move on to Zoe. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Zoe Roth, and my dream is to save and protect our planet, people, animals, and nature. I know I'm only in 3rd grade, but I want to teach people I can make a difference, and to show kids around the world that we can make a difference. Our planet. Scientists say that Earth should live about 1.7 billion years. That might seem like a long time, but it's not. We can save our Earth if we use wind, solar, or hydropower. The effect will be our planet living longer and our air will be cleaner. The problems are when we burn coal, it produces carbon dioxide into the air and doesn't let hot air out of Earth's atmosphere. And so it causes global warming, and that's a problem. So we could use hydro, solar, or wind power in winter springs. Today. Animals. Animals need our help. Due to global warming, animals are having a tough time because it toxicates their air, water, land, and food. And we're also hurting animals because we litter and it hurts their environment. In another way, we hurt them by cutting down trees, which are hurting a lot of animals' habitats, which can cause some animals to go extinct. And we have a pretty clean environment now, but we can also do a trash cleanup day in our town or city. Nature. Just like animals, we can hurt the plants and trees by cutting them down. It can lead to extinct plants, and we rely on plants and trees to support clean air. So if plants go extinct, so can we and so can animals. And we rely on a lot of plants for food, so about 60 to 70% of the world's food supply would be gone. And that's a problem because we eat the food grown in gardens. So, in conclusion, we could do take a tree, plant a tree. People. There are some people in the world who don't have enough money to support their family. So, at Keys Elementary, we do food drives, clothing drives, and toy drives, which we can also do in our community, and creating shelters for people in need. In conclusion, I am trying to teach people to be helpful, kind, and supporting people into our world and our communities, and to teach people we can make a difference. I will be helping our community soon by doing a trash cleanup day. Thank you for your time. Hope we can do this.
Thank you. Great job. Let's see, do we have any other young ladies? I see a number of other names here. Let's see. Looks like that's all of the young ladies. Okay, so I will move on then to others. Thank you very much, ladies. Okay, my friend Kurt Marikey, you are up. Good evening. Now, are you speaking on behalf as the president of the Tuscarora Homeowners Association?
Yes.
So that you get 5 minutes.
My name is Kurt Marikey. I live at 1820 Seneca Boulevard in Winter Springs. And I've been a resident here since 1997. I'm speaking, first of all, the prayer. I appreciate the prayer this evening and the mention that we live in a beautiful, wonderful city. And I believe we do that. And I'm speaking on also the item number 500 in the agenda. And it just says a presentation on Winter Springs Boulevard. I do not know exactly what that presentation is or what the conclusion is, but I'm assuming it is to raise the speed limit from 25 to 30 again on Winter Springs. I'd just like to mention that this particular item and subject has been the nature of this area for 5 particular times over the last 2 or 3 years that we've discussed this and gone back and forth on it. Our board, the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association, of which I'm a president, has written a statement that I'd like to read and then give to the city as a copy. To the Winter Springs City Commissioners from the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association Board of Directors, April 14th, 2025. Winter Springs Boulevard is a beautiful treasure to the Tuscaloosa community. It marks the center point of our neighborhood, and many people use the street as a place to jog, ride bikes, walk, and even use their golf carts. We also see electric scooters and electric bikes on the road. Many times our residents have had to stop for animals crossing from one green area to the other. Currently, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, but most people exceed that limit. To raise the limit to 30 miles an hour will be creating, we believe, a serious safety hazard in our community. It happens that many people now travel in excess of 30 miles an hour, and if you raise it up to that amount, people will be already driving maybe even up to 40 miles an hour. We as the Board of Directors of the Tuscaloosa community do not see the need to change the speed limit on Winter Springs Boulevard. We are against such a change and are asking the City Commission to help us keep our community a safe place to live by leaving the speed limit at its current 25 miles an hour. Respectfully, the Board of Directors of the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association, Kurt Markey, President. And just an extra comment along with that, one of our members of our board walks along Winter Springs Boulevard before the sun comes up. And she said there's just all kinds of people making their way, jogging, walking their dogs, doing all kinds of things early in the morning, in the darkness, some without lights, some without them. And it's something to think about by raising the speed limit. Can you stop soon enough if somebody slips and falls and makes their way into the street? We have 2 other speakers. I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to them. Thank you for letting me at least speak and give our opinion from our community about this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Markey. Appreciate it. Okay. Then I have Ratty.
Tony's first.
Well, sorry, I just took it in order that I had it. So thanks if you pronounce your last name for me.
Yes, it's a tricky one. I might be the only one in Florida with this funny name. I go by Roddy, but it's Radivoje Djemovic, and I'm at 1512 Aspenwood Street. For the last 6 years, my wife and I have loved living here more than we thought. We moved here to be with our in-laws, my in-laws, not her in-laws. We love driving down Winter Springs Boulevard. We use it a lot. We bike, we walk, we run. I know, I'm 67, but I do run occasionally. I also drive it in the morning, as Kurt was saying. There are a lot of people out there, and not all of them are that visible. I understand why they use it. I want to thank you for giving us such nice wide bike lanes, beautiful asphalt, repaired after every hurricane, flood and disaster and bridge damage. Thanks for taking care of us. Let me just fast forward. My wife was driving just this week, 1 or 2 days ago, a little blonde kid, maybe 7, 8, earbuds in, popped out from behind bushes in front of her car. No screeching, no near miss, but she's going 25. We just are worried about our safety. One of the studies say that pedestrian fatality risk at 25 miles an hour is 10%. It's 25% fatality risk at 30 miles. And 40% at 35 miles an hour. If we jump up to 40 miles an hour, obviously no braking involved, some contractor, some landscaping guy just getting to the next job, going at 40 miles an hour, that's a 60% fatality rate. Obviously, braking distances are much longer at these higher speeds. So I would just like to say, my wife and I, who contribute to our community, I'm on the board at Chelsea Park. I love this community, and I love contributing to the community as a treasurer. But I just want to conclude that as a resident, as a cyclist, as a jogger, as a neighbor to the kids and the people in my Tuscarora, we're very concerned about the increase in braking distances and the increase in injuries and potentially fatalities that could rise with the higher speed limit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bolliard. How are you, Tony?
Good evening. My name is Tony Boyard. I live at 1110 Pheasant Circle. I'm here too to back up what Roddy and Kurt were talking about and keeping the speed limit at 25. I first come to you as a parent. I have a 14-year-old child at Indian Trails Middle School who's soon to be going to Winter Springs High School. And I don't know if any of you have sat out into the middle of Trotwood Park near the softball fields at dismissal time, but all you see are electric bikes and electric scooters, and they race across Trotwood heading towards Winter Springs Boulevard. But what you may notice or may not notice is the cell phone usage, the earbuds, and everything that goes along with that, the speed of those e-bikes. And I think keeping the speed limit at 25 would allow the drivers an ability to react to inexperienced drivers who are riding those e-bikes and those electric scooters. So I really would like to encourage you to go out and sit and watch at dismissal to see for yourself what that looks like. Again, I'd like to keep the speed limit at 25 for safety reasons, and I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Commissioner Miller.
Got a copy for you. Robert Miller, 679 Silver Creek Drive. Evening. I have here in front of me the Orlando Sentinel's front page from yesterday. Those of you who don't subscribe to it, it states, drinking water danger looms. So I wanted to put this into the record just so we can put some things in context. Orlando Sentinel's page 1 article last Sunday once again highlighted Lake Mary's dioxin threat to its water supply. 1 year ago, the Sentinel exposed the dioxin threat in Lake Mary, and then Sanford too, but said absolutely nothing about Winter Springs' problem. Only 2 days earlier, last year, this commission had annexed the county's dioxin Superfund site into the city of Winter Springs, referring to the corner of Shepherd Road in 1792. Now it's our problem. Now it's our problem, not the county. In this Sunday's newspaper, Lake Mary, Sanford, Seminole County have joined together to sue the dioxin polluters, but there's no mention made anywhere about Winter Springs' problem. Maybe it's because Seminole County's former problem is now that of the residents of our city. And if that's the case, I must be the only one that cares. I hope that's not the case, but I would encourage all of you to contact the county at your earliest convenience and get some data that this place called, now I'm having a senior moment, the corner of 1792 and Shepherd Road. The top of that hill, and it's actually a hill, if you take all the green off, like with a large napalm strike, pardon me, you'll find that it's actually a hill. And the hill slopes down so fast under 1792 that there's a huge plume that's been under that roadway, under 1792 now, for I think almost 15, 20 years. There used to be a water place, a spring along 1792, and everyone that's been here many years remembers going there and getting water because it was right out of the aquifer. They closed that a long time ago, 10 years ago, I think. So there are plumes moving under this other area, and if it's going to the east, which it may very well be, then we have 2 shallow water wells only about a half a mile away in the highlands. So once again, I encourage you, please, contact the county. Whatever it is they're doing, get this quantified and qualified, and let's get in with that lawsuit so that if somebody's going to help pay for all this, I need another minute, just because this is important. The organization that was on top of that hill over here, in our city now, used to prepare printed circuit boards. They would clean those with these highly toxic dioxin-laced type in hot baths. From there, they would go to Lake Mary, where they would be assembled into bigger assemblies, which would again be washed in dioxin to make sure there are no fingerprints on it, because in those days you had to, it wasn't like today where it's all done by computer. Then you had to manually do all this stuff. So Lake Mary's problem is our problem. We just don't want to talk about it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner. That brings us to Paula Keys. No, excuse me, actually, ma'am, because that is a public hearings agenda item, you can speak before the vote. In other words, we will open it up for that specific topic as we have the conversation, and you will be allowed to speak.
So you would prefer I speak then?
It would be more relevant. You can hear some of the
It's
conversation.
a little more general than just that.
Oh, okay.
If you don't
Whichever
mind?
you prefer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am Paula Keys. I live at 344 Casa Grande Drive, and I am a resident of Hacienda Village, which is a 55-plus community on 434 between Hayes and Moss Roads with over 400 homes. I'm also a retired accountant. The residents of Hacienda Village are generally low to medium income, and we live on fixed incomes. We plan our budget so that we can continue to afford to live what remains of our lives in comfort and with peace of mind. We hope our local government does the same when they look at the issues facing our city, and in particular, the issue with the rate increase proposed for stormwater. Just raising rates on stormwater usage because you can is not the answer. Taking responsibility for a balanced budget, which identifies areas of waste and alternative types of funding, is the beginning of an answer. We support Commissioner Paul Diaz and his approach to budgeting and approving agenda items based upon an approved budget. We ask that all the commissioners listen to what he has to say, because there are solutions better than just raising the rates.
Thank you. And Leah Weissman.
Leah Weissman, 113 Brookshire Court. I will also need, when the park committee thing comes up, I'll need to call for that too, but I'll talk about everything about that. I want to thank the commission and Mr. Sweet by cleaning the culverts. 434 culvert, 3 creeks go underneath it. If it is blocked, literally the whole west side gets flooded that's near the creeks. It's Geek Creek, everyone knows, No Name Creek, and Winding Hollow to Oak Forest. Mark sends all his water to me. And then we have a problem because it can't get out. So I'm thanking you because even if we don't do more than that right now before hurricane season, it may make the major difference, because the one time we had the clean out from the state, the next storms weren't as bad for all of the flood. Let's see. And the other thing was happy Earth Month, so the Girl Scouts and I should probably link up once we do or not do with the committee, because there's a lot of areas, they're very simple work, taking moss off of plants. You know, if they're volunteering for badges or whatever, I think it would be a good idea. Involve them in more ecological things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to? Sir?
Hello, my name is Robin Nealon. I'm here to discuss a little bit about what I'm doing at the old 7-Eleven at 898 Winter Springs Boulevard. I live at 1033 Northern Way in Winter Springs. In fact, Miss Baker, I believe you're in my house that I built in the 90s with the black on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I built that in the 90s when I first came here to Tuscaloosa. I bought it 5 acres, cleared it out, and I remember sitting up on the 3rd story with my own legs, pulling those trusses up and setting them myself with 5 other guys. We didn't use a crane back then.
Wow.
So I remember building that house back then. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing over at the Clubhouse Deli is the name of the Clubhouse Deli is the name we're calling it. It's going to be a convenience store. We're going to have some Italian food, some pizza, some sandwiches, some hoagies, some quick grab to go with limited inside seating. We want to put some outside seating, and I need to work with some people at the board here in the construction department. I have a drawing here that I need to go over with some people on how I need to build out the seating on the outside. There is some there's some building on the side, there's some property that I noticed when people come to the building. I'm there construction every day. There are many people coming there. They're coming there during the day and they're bringing their dogs. What I'm finding is we might put some outside seating for dogs, for some people that have their dogs, right? They can sit in that area too, so that we can have some seating out there with some dogs and food. We're looking at that, or putting in some swing sets we're looking at. We got to look at the insurance, so we're trying to evaluate that on costs. So I'm trying to come up with some options. Some of the other options we're coming up with is putting in, and what I noticed is we have a mailbox that's sitting dag smack right where one of the seats I want to put for outside seating is, that we want to move. That I worked with the post office, I met with the inspector, and we want to move it to the front over by the monument. We'd like to put the mailbox over there. She's agreed. We just got to put the slab in for her. We want to put in some overhead covering, and I want to put in a camera system to video for protection, right? And we want to also put in an Amazon for packages. And I want to make this free available to the community at no charge, so that they can come in and put theirs in and worry. Because I noticed when I asked people, I saw people coming up at the mailbox putting in mail. I mean, we're talking about not 1, 2 a day. We're talking about 20, 30 people a day was coming there dropping mail off at that box. I was curious. So I asked them over a week period, why? And everyone had the exact same, because if I put it in my mailbox, I'm afraid it's going to go away. That is their concern. So it seems to be a safety issue. So my point is I want to put a safety in there. The next thing on there was we want to put in some electrical chargers. I've worked with Duke. I have the phone number. My landlord there at the location has done some chargers that they worked with Kissimmee for funding through the Kissimmee city, and they got charger money through federal grants. I have the contacts from Duke Energy who put that together. So if you guys would be interested, I'd like to do that to the community and make that available. I just need some support from the city if you want to. Just to wrap it up, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Your success is our success. Thanks. I would encourage you to reach out as soon as possible to city staff and make sure that everything is flowing and you have all the documents that you need. Okay. Anyone else that would like to address the city commission? Oh.
Can I speak twice?
How about at the end?
Different issue.
How about, yeah, I don't, commission, maybe look for a little input, do we? Well, just looking for other voices? No, do one and then have the other opportunities? Okay. So, just want to make sure I'm not, okay. Anyone else? Commissioner?
Ken Greenberg, Winter Springs Community Association, 1635 White Dove Drive, Winter Springs. I've been following ever since, I'm addressing issue 500. That's the speed limit on Winter Springs Boulevard. I've been following this since this crazy idea came up and was passed a couple of years ago. It was done for all the wrong reasons, done improperly to start because an FDOT study wasn't done. I know back then our police chief was not in favor of this. He spoke against it. The average speed was around 31 miles an hour in the 30-mile-an-hour zone. It still is 31 in a 25 zone, except people risk getting tickets and tailgating and what have you. It makes no sense. Listen, I live in a neighborhood. I understand feeder roads. Feeder roads should be 25 because you do have kids running around, darting out, playing in the neighborhoods. 100% behind that. But this Winter Springs Boulevard is just that. It's a boulevard. It's not a feeder road. It's a main boulevard with a 10-foot plus median, wide lanes, extra wide because there's a golf cart lane in there for bikes, golf carts, what have you. There's also sidewalks all the way up Winter Springs Boulevard, at least from Seneca down. I can't speak from the Oviedo side because it really doesn't matter. So the concept of keeping the speed limit at 25 is just plain silly at this point, because no road like it anywhere in Winter Springs, or I'd venture to say anywhere in Seminole County, with a wide median, wide trails, and sidewalks, there is no other roads that are sitting at 25 miles an hour. Winter Springs Community Association does annual surveys. We did ours not long ago, and that was one of the questions. And I will tell you, overwhelmingly, I'm talking north of 70% of Winter Springs residents, because we only do Winter Springs residents, north of 70% of the residents are in favor of bringing the speed limit back up to 30. Because, in fact, if you recall, back when this silliness was done, even then Commissioner Johnson actually spoke at a meeting and said, I'm having second thoughts. There's been a lot of outreach against, decreasing the speed limit because it made no sense then. It makes no sense now. Again, I'm sure when item 500 comes up, the chief will come up. He'll make his presentation, which I see because I get the agenda as well. I've seen it, when I've seen the speeds. So again, it's a lot of, I respect other people's opinions, but I will tell you overwhelmingly that would be north of 70% of Winter Springs residents are not in favor of keeping the speed limit at 25. They highly request that the speed limit be moved up to 30. That's not only this recent one that we did, this was also last year when we asked the same question. So I respectfully ask that you honor the residents' request, and that is move the speed limit back up to 30 where it belongs on a major boulevard. It is not a feeder street. It is a boulevard. It did not deter or create any additional traffic, coming in from Oviedo or what have you, because coming in from the Oviedo, you'd be down on the Oviedo side anyway. It didn't become a thoroughfare. It didn't become a truckway. It didn't become any of that stuff. So again, please honor the residents' request. 70+% did not want it at this speed limit and requested it be back to 30. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Madam. Good
Hello.
evening.
I'm Linda Freeburn, 1604 Cougar. I'll try and be fast. So item 500. We moved here and moved into Tuscaloosa in 2004. We've been here for a while. Winter Springs Boulevard is a cut-through. It just is. If you look at a map, you can see why. And it's going to continue to be a cut-through unless alternate routes are made available to these people. We have seen traffic increase because of Oviedo's growth. That's why if you stand there, you don't need a study to see this. Go stand at the stop signs at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you will see the stream of cars coming through. I think, for the safety of the residents of Tuscaloosa, because it's residential, Scott and I, we cycle, we walk, we ride our golf cart every day through that neighborhood, and so do a lot of other people. For the safety of the residents of Tuscarora and for consistency throughout the neighborhood, just leave it at 25. We changed it to 25, this ping-ponging back and forth. People will get used to it. If they're going 30 miles an hour now, people can be taught. So when we moved here in 2004, we moved here from Kansas. We both had Kansas plates on our car, easy to identify. Everybody told us, whatever you do, don't speed and come to a complete stop at the stop signs because they will write you up. And sure enough, one week, Scott gets stopped. He gets a warning. The next week, I got a ticket. We learned. We go 25 miles an hour. We come to a complete stop at the stop signs. We're talking about a 3-mile stretch of road. Even if you go 30 down there, you're not gaining a whole ton of time. And if it helps, we have ducks, turtles, armadillos, raccoons, all kinds of stuff walking through the neighborhood too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeburg. Anyone else? Okay, so seeing no other candidates for public input, we'll end public input for now, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Okay, as usual, I'm sure that, and I believe that there may be one item being pulled.
Yes.
And that item is?
301, please.
Great. Any other items being pulled from the consent agenda? So what I might ask, a little change up, how about we go ahead and make a motion and pass the other items on the on the consent agenda, and then we discuss and we'll vote separately on item 301. So I hear that Deputy Mayor has made the motion.
Did you do exactly that?
I'll second that.
And seconded by Commissioner Baker. Christian. Yeah.
He did. I love that.
That's fine.
Bacon makes everything better.
I don't know where that came from. Sorry.
Commissioner Diaz.
Yes.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Crusoe.
Aye.
Okay. Item 300 and 302 passed unanimously. So discussion for item 301, that is a consideration approval implementation of warrant service officer program. I think the chief is here to answer questions, and I'll turn the microphone over
The first note I would like to make is that it is no longer the warrant service officer. It is a task force model, so things have changed a little bit. If you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit about what the MOA is and some studies that have been done on it. And then I have about 10 questions. I think they're fairly quick to answer, though. I have some deep concerns regarding the involvement of our local police department in ICE initiatives that feel politically motivated and do not necessarily align with some of the basic freedoms of the melting pot of America and in Winter Springs. It would be very slippery slope that starts here, but leads to excessive and unnecessary detentions, disproportionately affecting people of color. Section 287G of the Immigration and Nationality Act infers on home rule by allowing federal immigration enforcement to be delegated to state and local enforcement, effectively giving federal agencies a say in how local policing is conducted. This can lead to conflicts with local laws and ordinances, as local agencies are now tasked with enforcing federal immigration laws, potentially undermining local control over our own law enforcement. So the delegation of authority is one point. 287G allows for federal government to delegate certain immigration enforcement functions to state and local enforcement, according to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. This means local police will now act as immigration agents, which can be seen as an infringement on local control. Out of 3 levels of 287G, we are being asked to comply with the most extensive of the 3. The task force model aims to integrate immigration enforcement into community policing, allowing officers to identify and address immigration violations while performing their regular duties. Conflict with local laws. Local governments often have their own policies and procedures regarding law enforcement, which may conflict the federal immigration enforcement practices. For example, a local ordinance might limit police from engaging in certain types of questioning or detention, while 287 agreement might require them to do more for the immigration purposes. Erosion of trust is the biggest concern I have. 287G agreements can also erode trust between local law enforcement and the community, particularly people of color, despite their immigrant status. As reported by the ACLU, when local officers are tasked with enforcing federal immigration laws, it can create fear and distrust among immigrants who may be less likely to cooperate with law enforcement and report crimes. Financial burden. Local governments also face financial burden associated with 287, including costs associated with the program and potentially litigation that arises from the enforcement of these immigration laws. It's my concern that the rights of municipalities are being taken away for political gain in a challenging political climate, when we are already seeing great division, and the people who will suffer the most of this political stunt are the people who live and work in our community by creating distrust and more division. We don't want to be afraid of our neighbors. So, my few questions. Sorry. From the ICE's website, there are 3 levels of 287G. We are being asked to sign an MOA for the most extensive of the 3, which was previously done away with, but reinstated during this administration. It states, the task force model serves as a force multiplier for law enforcement agencies to enforce limited immigration authority with ICE oversight during routine police duties. In the MOA we are being asked to sign, it gives our local PD the power and authority to interrogate any alien or person believed to be an alien, as it is his right or to be or remain in the United States. This concerns me. How is ICE 287 task force model program different from what the department is already required to do with the department when the department encounters someone who has committed a crime or has a standing warrant? When they might not have proper paperwork. So what is the difference?
So first off, you have some valid concerns. You know, this is a hot topic around the state right now. There's a lot of commissions that are having the same discussions as the police chiefs had as well when this first was presented to us. So it wasn't until we started learning a lot more of what's being asked of us until we decided what this is. But to your question, you know, regardless of current immigration status, if a subject is arrested for a crime, a local charges crime, and they are an immigrant, that notification is made at the jail level. We don't have any authority to enforce federal laws or anything like that. Typically, our encounters with those with an immigration status are on traffic stops for maybe a traffic violation or a passenger in a car. And if we can determine if there is an immigration issue, our current policies would be to contact ICE and say, hey, we are out with he or she. What do you want us to do? There's no local charges. They most likely will say, well, we can't get there, let them go. And that's exactly what would happen. I think in my almost 30 years of doing this, maybe a half a dozen times I've encountered a situation like that. And all those, that person was let go. What this proposal is doing is allowing police departments to designate specifically trained ICE officers that will have to go through a 40-hour training block. A number that I haven't decided yet, but it'll be very minimal. And allow them to, if this person does have a civil ICE warrant, take them into custody and transport them to the jail. This is not a search and seek for immigration violations in our city. Luckily, our city does not have an immigration problem. We are not going into schools. That was probably my #1 concern, is I don't want a Winter Springs police patch on the news pulling kids out of schools. That's not the intent of this. The intent of this was to target the violent offenders that are here illegally and have already committed crimes that the nation knows about. Okay. So hopefully that satisfies a little bit of your concerns.
Yeah, you answered the next 2 questions as well in that one, so thank you. Research has found that 287G programs foster environments that increase racial profiling by law enforcement agents. I know that's not something we've already talked about, but I do believe that, the Latino and Black community might feel a little bit stressed out about that possible profiling happening. A 2020 study from Texas A&M University also found that this discriminatory behavior has affected law enforcement agencies that have not entered in a formal ICE agreement but are geographically proximate to an agency that with an active agreement. Despite the documented racial profiling caused by these programs in states with growing anti-immigrant sentiments such as Florida, state lawmakers have expanded this program. In the Florida legislature, lawmakers through SB 1808 have made this law enforcement agency, any law enforcement agency that operates detention facility to enter into the agreement. Is there a threat of racial profiling under this?
So take away the immigration status of this. Any kind of racial profiling is obviously of great concern, and it wouldn't be tolerated. We have strict policies in place that prevent stuff like that. We as an agency are charged with protecting all of rights, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, sex, sexual preference, physical handicap, etc. We've been an accredited agency for over 23 years. We take great pride in that, and we are held to these strict policies. In fact, we do an annual bias-based policing report to make sure that we haven't missed anything. And then, quite frankly, we're such a small agency that we have a leadership culture that will know when this is going on, if this was to go on.
Okay.
The span of control of our officers under leadership is pretty tight, and it just wouldn't be tolerated. They would be subject to criminal charges in the state attorney and through FDLE. So.
Okay, thank you. How can we ensure that immigrants here on visas, green cards, or have become citizens are safe from an unnecessary detention and deportation, as we've seen several instances across the country already this happening?
Yeah, so the purpose of this 287 is to, like I said, target the illegal immigrants. So those that are on visas and green cards have went through the process, and the nation knows who they are. Now, if they're here on expired visas and green cards and stuff like that, that could be a different story. But like I said before, my intent is not to go out and seek and search for immigrants. This is an officer that has been trained to do this ICE stuff, but they must be available. Meaning if I only select one officer for the police department to be my ICE representative and they're not available, we move on. Other agencies are training how many they want. That's up to them. But I don't want a whole police department full of ICE agents. That's not my goal.
A follow-up to what State Bill 1808 had to say, Winter Springs does not operate a detention facility, so is it really necessary for us to enter an agreement when the Sheriff's Department already has?
Yes, each police agency here, all the municipalities in Seminole County are going through the same thing right now. Majority of them have already signed and submitted these agreements. We all are responsible for policing our own communities. If the situation arose and I needed to get the Sheriff's Department in here, we could do that. But we are merely, you can call it kind of like an Uber driver for ICE, where we're taking somebody into custody and we're bringing them to the jail. And that's what our involvement would be.
What can you tell our residents who fear our officers will be going into schools, churches, or other places considered safe?
It's not going to happen. I won't allow it. It's taken over 3 decades to build the trust that the community has in us now. And that's not something I'm willing to give up. You start doing things like this, then you lose the community's trust. And I'm not willing to put my name or my integrity on the line for that. Once we lose that, it's very, very difficult to get back.
You kind of touched on my next question about how many people you're going to have and if they're doing other things, but participating in this project, you don't anticipate it taking them away from any other important jobs that they're already doing?
No, this is not like a long-term investigative type thing. This is no different than you stop a car and the person has a warrant for a criminal violation. They're taken into custody and they're brought to the jail. It'd be the same type of program.
Okay. My next question. On January 20th, 2025, President Donald Trump issued an executive order protecting the American people against invasion. I don't necessarily believe that we're under invasion. I think that's harsh wording, but I don't think the executive order requires ICE to authorize state and local law enforcement officials, as the Secretary of Homeland Security determines, are qualified and appropriate under Section 287 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, to the maximum extent permitted by the law. Several states, including but not limited to Georgia and Florida, have passed or are considering passing mandates to sign these agreements. Other states have it set as voluntary, or it's actually illegal to do in some states. If I understand this correctly, some states are prohibited, some states are voluntary, and some states like Florida are mandated. What does that mean for Florida?
So back in January of 23, the governor signed an executive order directing all state law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement, not local, to take whatever necessary action it is to protect Floridians from the border crisis or the immigration crisis. And with that became the Florida Sanctuary City laws, Florida State Statute 908. And then within those, laws specifically say how local state law enforcement will enforce immigration laws. And if you don't, there could be penalties. Those penalties aren't spelled out. I can tell you there's been a recent creation of a law enforcement accountability dashboard that was created by the state. So officers, employees, the public could report any immigration wrongdoings that a police department is doing.
Okay. What costs will be covered by ICE, and what cost, if any, will Winter Springs accrue for this?
Yeah, I think this will be pretty much a zero cost, minimal, if any.
Okay.
Nothing significant.
All right. Lastly, if federal or state government decides to change or mandate an increase in responsibilities, will we have the opportunity to discuss those changes, or will we be bound to comply?
You know, if the commission decides to enter into this agreement, one of the good things about it is we have the option to opt out at any time. It says it in the agreement. I don't know what kind of penalties could come down from that, but that is an option. If these are significant changes, I'll obviously work with legal and get legal opinion on it to see what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if required, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Okay. My last is just a statement that Fort Myers voted against this, and they had internal investigations opened on all of the commissioners that voted against it, and there were threats of losing appropriations or funding for their police department, so on and so forth. So that doesn't sound very voluntary to me.
You are correct. That did happen. There was going to be an investigation by the Attorney General's office. However, since Fort Myers Commission decided to re-vote and voted for it, maybe to put you at a little bit of ease, I can give you the municipalities here in Seminole County that have entered into this agreement. The Sheriff's Department, all 67 counties, all 67 sheriffs have signed it. Oviedo has signed it. Sanford has signed it. Longwood has signed it. Sanford Airport has signed it. And then Castleberry, Lake Mary, and us are just pending commission approval.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone, I've got a couple questions. Anyone else? Let me be real clear, maybe. Are you under the impression that we have a choice here? My understanding is those that voted against it in Fort Myers, the governor was going to remove those elected officials from office.
So I like to work with facts.
Yeah, what is-
The
yeah, thanks,
facts
and not-
of the case
right.
are in the memorandum of understanding or agreement. I don't want to give my opinions.
Okay,
I don't
thanks.
think anything good will come out.
Right.
So,
Yeah, as commendable as your ethics and what I hear you saying, we have $100 million in state revolving funds that we're relying on. We have a lot of other things that we will be relying on. We must work together with the state, and I don't see that this is.
It puts us in a very
Yep,
tricky
there is-
position.
We do not have a choice here, folks. Any other comments or discussion? Then I would ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve, is it 301 of the consent agenda?
Okay.
It'll need the change made to it for task force model versus the warrant
With the
service.
Change, you're right, they changed the wording on,
Is that what you want?
in the final.
Okay, so item 301,
approval with the title
Approval with the title change from the memorandum of agreement.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made by the deputy mayor and seconded by Commissioner Crusoe. Christian?
Commissioner Bruce,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker,
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Okay.
Can I just say something real quick? I know I'm past my time, but Commissioner Baker, I appreciate your concerns. They are all valid concerns, and I appreciate the conversations we had about this.
Absolutely. You do a great job, and I knew you would have the right answers. Thank you.
All right. Okay, it brings us to public hearing agenda and item 400. This is a second reading and adoption of ordinance 2411 and amendments to the city's comprehensive plan. Carolyn.
Good evening,
Madam.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. City Clerk. For the record, Carolyn Roll, Director of Community Development. We have before you ordinance 2024-11, which encompasses the air-based amendments. That's the evaluation and appraisal reports for the city's comprehensive plan. We initiated this process last year, and the city's required every 7 years to do a review and any requisite update of the comp plan to be in compliance with the state. During this process last year, one of the requirements changed to extend the reporting period to 10 years. And so the work that we initiated, we had to revisit our data and analysis in the air report so that it was inclusive of a 10-year planning outlook. And so we have completed those revisions. We are working with Inspire Placemaking Collective. That's the consulting group that's helping us with these air amendments as well as our 2050 comp plan. And so before I ask you, should you desire it, to have the city attorney read by title only, I will ask our consulting team to come up and just give you an update of that data and analysis. And then we're happy to answer any questions you might have before or after public hearing. And so we have Ms. Gabriela Castro, as well as Mr. Chris Doherty with Inspire Placemaking Collective. And we have a PowerPoint presentation here.
Good evening. Gabriela Castro with Inspire Placemaking Collective. Address is 4767 New Broad Street, Orlando, 32814. So we're here to address the adoption of the comprehensive, the EAR comprehensive plan update. So we have broken this out into 2 phases. So the workshops that you've attended previously and the community engagement that we have done in the past months are not part of this update. That will be later on in the summer. So we'll come back to you later on with those changes. These are, as Terralyn pointed out, state required updates to update the time frame and any new changes that the state has required us to incorporate. So this is a short presentation to identify the changes that we've made. We came in August to transmit it to the state. The state provided a report. These are the changes that the state are requiring us to make to adopt the update. So as we previously stated, it addresses the recent changes in Florida state statutes. Has to be done at least every 7 years. We've updated the plan to go through 2045, and these changes required updates to 9 out of the 10 elements. So what we did was we updated the references, the map series, and reflect any new statutory changes. So the planning horizon got changed, agency names got changed. We removed any references to the CRA and the DRC since they are no longer. We've removed any duplicates that have been incorporated into the Land Development Code for the city, and we've revised the level of service for the wastewater to comply with the wastewater master plan. We've also created new map series and revised any data from those, any new data that we've received. So, as I previously stated, we did the August transmittal. The state came back and provided comments in October, and the city has until April 23rd to comply with these requirements. If not, we'll have to do that whole process all over again. So there was 2 objections. So objections are reasons that the state won't adopt the plan. And one is to reflect the new 20-year period instead of the 10-year period as we originally transmitted. So we changed that to reflect 2045. And the state passed the septic to sewer requirement, which required cities to identify areas that use septic systems that are less than, there's 50 units of less with a density greater than 1 acre. So the city had already created a plan, the wastewater master plan, so we adopted that by reference. And there was one comment that our capital improvement schedule was out of compliance, so we went ahead and updated it to include the next 5 years. So after this adoption, if you were to adopt, the city will have to send this, the adopted document over to the state within the next 10 days. And this is just a project timeline highlighting phase 1 will be complete after this adoption, and we're still working on phase 2. We'll come back this summer. That will have all the public engagement and workshop information. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I have a list of them, so I'll try to keep them short. Do you guys, I'd like to let the commissioners go first, as always. Any questions or discussion?
I'll go after you.
Okay.
I'll let you go. I've got 2
All right.
comments, but then I'll go.
All right. Let's see here. Let me kind of. Okay, if we can go to the agreement and maybe pull that up. Is that okay? And on page 21.
Oh, the analysis memo?
No, the actual ordinance that we're voting on. So it's the very first item.
Yep, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Okay. And it basically, this particular topic addresses the GID district. And the first 2 paragraphs I see were the entire section. Yeah, so if you go down to page 21 on that. Not at the bottom of the page, but over at the side where it shows 21. Yeah, there you go. That. Okay. Yeah. And you should see that entire section has been redlined and taken out. I guess the only thing that I'd like a little understanding of is why the 2030 designation of future land use map. In other words, it's, to me, not being an attorney and trying to understand, it looks as if we're kind of striking out the definition of the GID. Maybe, can you just maybe explain why we dropped that entire thing? I know most of it is transportation. Most of this section is about, interconnectivity and, transportation and sidewalks. And I get why a lot of that may have been struck out, but the definition of the GID also going out with it. I guess I'm concerned about, I don't want to lose that identity of the GID, and I want to make sure that we have protections.
We won't be losing the identity of the GID. In fact, we do recognize that there is an opportunity to take a deeper dive and look at the GID, and that's what we're doing as part of 2050. But it's my understanding that the red lines that you see for the GID today, most of which have been implemented or are included in the Land Development Code. So we're not recommending getting rid of the GID. We're actually going to go back and revamp it as part of 2050. This is just kind of cleaning up based on what has already been done.
Okay, thanks.
2030 date on it, so this would be old, because this is a 2030 document.
And it does say 2030 on here, but that's okay. I do see the GID is clearly labeled on maps. It's used in different descriptions and different pages of this 170-page document. It is mentioned other times. Just wanted reassurances that when seeing that entire section being taken out, that we're still on safe ground. We're not going to run into any legal problems having stricken any of this. The GID is still in effect. Right.
Yep.
Okay, then moving on, page 87. You can grab that, and basically, and I think I may know the answer, because the 1792 CRA no longer exists. Maybe that's why it was struck. Let's see, let me find page 87 here myself. So again,
Policy 1.1.8.
yes, I believe so. Basically, and I think, there it is. Yeah, I think I understand. What happened is it was carried down into the next page, and I think that so limit the development of housing with a density greater than 18 dwelling units per acre, limited to only the town center. It strikes out US 1792 and the CRA corridor, but the CRA corridor no longer exists.
Correct.
Is that correct? So all we're doing, but if a developer, in other words, if we're going to do high density, being on 1792 right on that busy, 6-lane road, that's not a bad place for it, to be honest with you. If we're going to do it, I just want to make sure that striking this line is not going to stop a developer from coming through. If they want to do apartments over there in that part of our city, that immediately stops the project from moving forward by striking that line.
Right, that it was just cleanup based on the CRA being
Because-
sunset, yeah.
Right, the CRA no longer exists.
Right, right. And that, again, is another one of those cleanup items that will be coming back as part of the 2050 update, and making sure that those things that you mentioned are carried forward in the plan.
So if someone wanted to replace, transmission shops, auto body repair, replace a bunch of those and put in housing, that striking of that line would not stop that on 1792.
Right.
Okay, wonderful. Then we move on to page 110, and it discusses the height requirements to build in a floodplain. I guess my concerns are, we're basically wondering why that's there, why we struck. It says, to require the finished floor elevation of all structures to be located a minimum 18 inches above the 100-year flood elevation.
Good evening again.
Why did we strike that?
So we, within the comp plan and its elements, any zoning code specific language has been stricken, because the language should be reserved to be in the code, and when that gets updated accordingly, we can leave it there. But we're trying not to have specific language from the zoning code referenced in the comp plan. So that's just removing that specific language and leaving anything specific to the code in the code. And so we're not removing the code itself, but just the reference to it, so that you're not continually updating numerous sections of the code that are referenced in the comprehensive plan. So that's where you see a lot stricken from these elements in the comp plan. And then just also to your previous question regarding that, the full name is the 1792 CRA. It's not the 1792 corridor or the CRA. It's the 1792 CRA, Community Redevelopment Area, which no longer exists. So that wouldn't have any impact on any development proposed on 1792. That's not pertaining to a CRA.
Okay, so just to be clear, we have a code that requires 18 inches or more.
Well, we have a code. I don't have it in front of me to reference what it says, but wherever you see specific code references in the comp plan, we're wanting to remove them so as to not to have to come back to amend them if necessary. So by removing it from the comp plan isn't removing the requirement from the code. It's just that specific language. So if it's 18 inches today and we change it to 20 inches next week and 17 inches, so we're just removing that specific language. It's not removing the requirement, and it is referenced in the code.
Okay, I think I understand. It makes sense. I'm just asking specifically, if it's okay with the commission, I'd be asking the city manager to please clarify and ensure, or if you would, simply let us know what the code says. What is the height? Losing hundreds of homes during Hurricane Ian, and we keep talking about stormwater, we have a responsibility, people building new homes, We must have a standard. I want to make absolutely sure that standard is in place. And sir, if you would just simply let us know what the code is in the next couple of days, if you can research that and let
Yes,
us know
will do.
exactly what that requirement is. I just want to make sure we're not in any way loosening. And then just follow up with that, and I'd just
Yeah.
like to know what that is.
And the comp plan is your policy document, and so therefore, again, it's been recommended to remove our zoning, our land development code specific references from the policy document and to have them in the code, but we'll follow up and get that to you.
I understand the
Yeah.
purpose. That clarifies a lot for me. I just want to make sure that there's something somewhere, and I'd like to know what that
Okay.
number is. And then, if we go, last thing is, page 162 through 165. Quite frankly, actually, I think I did answer my own question. You see, a lot of that is struck out, but it's on a separate attachment. It's on what you'll see is the thing, what we're spending on stormwater, what we're spending on different things is actually, if you scroll down a couple pages, you'll see everything's redlined, but actually, quite honestly, I found it later on. It's a separate attachment where we get into it. So no question on that. I apologize. I had it marked off, and then I answered my own question. Commissioners, who would like to go next? Commissioner Bruce.
Hello, can you define electrical substation? Explain to me what that would entail.
That is straight from the Florida state statute, but I can pull up that definition.
So that is a state preemption. So again, this is, the heavy-handed folks from Tallahassee are saying, hey, you can't preempt these, or you can't make these a prohibited use in your comp plan or your code. In this case, you're prohibited from not allowing those. And electrical substations are an absolute necessity for the electrical infrastructure in all cities. And so they typically, they are those facilities that are usually gated or walled off, and they have a lot of wires. I don't know the exact definition of them, but looks like Gabby pulled it up here.
Facility that takes electricity from transmission grid and converts it to a lower voltage so it can be distributed to customers in the local area on the local distribution grid through one or more distribution lines, less than 69 kilowatts in size.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Anyone else?
No.
Commissioner Dietz? No? Okay. If there are no further questions, this is the second reading, so we do not need permission to read by title only. Anthony?
Yes, sir.
Ordinance 2024-11, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Seminole County, Florida, setting forth amendments to the City of Winter Springs comprehensive plan based on the city's evaluation and appraisal of the comprehensive plan pursuant to Section 163.3191 Florida statutes, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the comprehensive plan, legal status of the comprehensive plan amendments, severability, and an effective date. This is second and final reading, also known as the adoption hearing for your air-based amendments. And with respect to your question, Mayor, there is a comparable City Code Section 9-241, subparagraph E3 regarding the finished floor elevation that you brought up.
Yeah. Do you know what it says with that? Is it also 18 inches? Do you know?
Yes.
Thanks. Great. Let's see, since if the discussion is over, it's public input. Anyone that would like to comment specifically about this item 400, I believe Mr. Ma, who chairs our Planning and Zoning Board. Thank you, sir. Thanks for all of the many years that you've spent contributing, volunteering your time and profession.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kakwan Ma, 145 Nandina Terrace. So back in August, your Planning and Zoning Board did review the ear-based memo, and I feel they did a pretty good job of it, but your chairman probably didn't do as good of a job reviewing some of the markups in the actual elements, And so I would like to provide some input on some comments that I have on some of the policies, most notably on the transportation element, to make sure that that language is clear. I don't know best way to do this. I can just read through it, but it's policy 1.2.13, which reads that to coordinate with FDOT to appropriately reclassify State Road 434 within Winter Springs Town Center corridor as Class 2 or Class 3 arterial based on the increased density of traffic signals along 434. This no longer applies because in 2009, that was the last year that FDOT used that particular classification system for arterial based on signal density. In 2013, it changed it based on speed. And then in 2023, which is what the adopted level of service tables are now, it is based on context classification. And so that policy should be rewritten based on the 2023 FDOT tables. And that would need to reclassify 434. I believe that stretch of 434 is classified as C3C, which is suburban commercial. So just something that will need to be changed there. Policy 1.2.14, support of widening 434 from 4 lanes, or from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Since that's completed, I think it's no longer applicable. Policy 1.5.18, establish a pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee made up of residents. And it goes on to explain what that is. Just knowing what some of the discussion items at the commission hearings that may or may not be applicable based on the BPAC committee itself. Policy 1.13.31, impact fees. Since the county has adopted their mobility fee ordinance, it may be more appropriate to replace impact fees with mobility fees. The additional benefit of that is that the term mobility fees would apply to multimodal facilities such as sidewalks and bike lanes, whereas impact fees only apply to the vehicle infrastructure. And then I wanted to get clarification on what is happening with all of the transportation series maps. Any of the future land use amendments would rely on those maps to, in the markups, it looks like the entire bottom 2/3 of the transportation element is being stricken out, including the maps. I want to make sure that there is not a lapse in having the maps available, especially when we go through a future land use amendment, because any future land use amendment needs to be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And then lastly, I had a similar comment with respect to the Greenway Interchange District, and to make sure that right now it looks like there is a goal which kind of defines what the GID is, but all of the objectives and policies have been stricken out. So I want to make sure that the city does not put itself in a position that makes it vulnerable for any change to happen, because I think the GID is a very important area in the city for the future, and we want to make sure there's no lapse in how that is defined and what the vision is. Thank you.
Stay right there. And we don't normally do questions, but I know that you chair the Planning and Zoning Board. If you don't mind, for public, for residents listening, your job title as a profession, what do you do?
I am a registered professional engineer. I work as a transportation engineer at a consulting firm, and I do a lot of the planning for. I represent many different jurisdictions under contract.
Municipalities.
Municipalities. Nearest one is Oviedo. I am their transportation planner. I do a lot of development reviews for City of Lake Mary, Altamont Springs, Fort Lauderdale, Port St. Lucie, Volusia County, and Daytona Beach.
Thank you. Would you please provide your notes, itemized notes to the city clerk so that we can review them, so that the city attorney or city manager can also review? before my list, before I met with the city staff, and I had, my list got a lot shorter after meeting with them. If you can provide that, I'm sure we may, we're on a deadline here to send it, but
Yes.
I think it's important that with your background, that we listen to what you're saying, and we have a chance to really do a deeper dive.
Understood.
Okay?
Thank you.
We okay? All right. Anyone else that would like to address the city commission on this particular item? Okay, so we'll close public input on item 400. I guess, I know we're on a time crunch. This has to be sent to this has to be transponded to the state at a date certain, is that right?
Correct.
And that is the 24th.
Today is your day to adopt.
Today is the only day.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, I just want you to know that the references, the transportation element, as well as the Greenway Interchange District and other sections, we have made some updates, and like I said, we are meeting the requirement to plan out to a 10-year period, but we are also, once we meet these statutory requirements by the commission adopting these air-based amendments today, we are still in the process of updating the comp plan, and so those elements that have been addressed today and others will be revised and updated to address those concerns as well out to the 2050 planning horizon. So these air amendments are not the end of the work being done. And so this is not the final step of that. But but you do need to adopt and transmit before that date.
Okay, we will have another bite at the apple.
Yes,
We will be able to
correct.
refine. Just want to be real clear about that. Okay.
Yes.
And Anthony, you agree with that?
The commission always has another bite at the apple to revise the comprehensive plan following the process. I just don't know how to react to the chairman's specific comments about, map deletions, which I think that's more of a staff question. The GID, I can answer. I mean, that's not going away. The existing policy, other than the revisions that they made at the preface of that section, are being deleted, but the guts of the GID policy remain the same, unless the commission changes otherwise. But
Yeah, I'm not worried about the individual points that were brought up, just that if there is a problem, if in the next week we kind of identify something, we can always go back and make, this isn't a do-all, end-all, this is the first bite at the apple, we can always revisit.
can always revisit.
Okay, that's it. Thanks. Any other questions from the commission? Any further discussion?
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 400 as presented.
Motion is made by the deputy mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Caruso. Christian.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
And the motion passes. That brings us to item 401 and the second reading of ordinance 2025-06 regarding city's personnel policy.
Ordinance 2025-06, an ordinance of the City Commission. City of Winter Springs, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Springs, Florida, amending Chapter 14 Personnel, Article 1 in general, and Article 2 Old Age and Survivors Insurance, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability and an effective date, second and final reading of this ordinance, also a public hearing item. There have not been any changes since first reading. Mayor.
Thank you. Discussion? There is no discussion. I will open that up to public input. On item 401, is there anyone that would specifically like to talk about streamlining city manager's job and his responsibilities at one level? Seeing none, we'll close public input, and if there's no further discussion from the commission, I'd ask for a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve item 401 as presented.
Motion's made by the deputy mayor. A second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Baker. Christian?
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 402, the second reading of ordinance 2025-08, creating the Parks, Rec, and Mobility Committee.
Ordinance number 2025-08, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Springs, Florida, to merge the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, creating instead a new Parks and Recreation and Mobility Committee, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code's severability and an effective date. This is second and final reading, also a public hearing item. At the city clerk's suggestion, we did make one change to this ordinance regarding the 2 at-large appointments to this committee, and that change was simply to stagger the terms of the 2 at-large committees appointments. As you know, there are 7 members being proposed. Each commission seat has an appointment plus 2 at-large. So the staggering will, stagger all the appointments so they don't all come due at the same time.
One other change that I wanted to talk about, it's not in the version that you have in front of you, but in 2-43B, proposing adding a sentence to the end of that defining what a quorum would be for the committee, saying that 4 or more members would constitute a quorum for the committee to meet. It's a majority of the seats.
Discussion. We've talked about this one a lot. If there's no discussion, we'll go to public input, and Ms. Weissman had previously filled out a blue form for that specific topic.
Hello, Leah Weissman, 113 Brookshire Court. I think every quarter meeting is not going to help, because generally they get information from the park people, and then if they don't have an idea about, response to that, or they're trying to coordinate something, you're talking months before you can do anything. I guess, my understanding of the sunshine, whatever that law is. So I'm concerned that we should have actually scheduled more meetings than cancel them if we don't need them, because doing it the other way around, having emergency ones, is a lot harder for the people of the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment specifically about item 402? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, I'd ask for a motion.
I do have something I'd like to add to that. So to follow up from her question, I think kind of in the vein of what we've done with the Veterans Board, perhaps we need to also make sure that we get this board together, sit down with them and say, hey, let's outline this exactly how it looks. So we give them, all the boards, the same privileges, we reset them, but that way it's more of a cohesive plan forward.
Reasonable, would you, so you're suggesting that the staff meet with them and work with them, or do you want, like I was a liaison with the Veterans Board, do you want a particular elected official to do that and work with them and see what they'd like to do? And kind of what I do with the Veterans Board, I sat down with members, not of that board, but a bunch of different people in the community that were interested in that, because you can't mix it, right? Anyway, set up the priorities. Anthony put something together, and then I took it back to the Veterans Board, and they will vote on it. It's
Same
something
sort
like
of
that?
thing, and if you want to be the person who does it, since you're the mayor, to do all of that, or one of us, that's fine. But I think we need an outline, and then that can answer that question based on the number of people who are going to be involved. If there's 7 people, and they feel to start with, rather than, maybe more involved in who's on the board.
I'm wide open. Anybody want to take that on, or shall we, Christian?
Just a reminder to the commission, if we want to further define something more that's in this ordinance, right? And we need to amend the ordinance, that means we're doing another ordinance, which means 2 more readings. So just that consideration. With the Veterans Committee, it's a resolution. I'm just saying, so we've laid out some general duties or focuses for the board. If we want, if what you're talking about is spelling out certain things that you want in the ordinance, I'm just relaying that would potentially require another ordinance.
Not changing the ordinance. The ordinance is pretty
Yeah.
straightforward, but it's, you know, the requirements, right, for the board members. But in this case, what is it that they're going to do?
So there would be a resolution. So we
Resolution.
can pass this.
Yes.
And then come back at a future date with a resolution just to tighten up what they do.
Right, so
If
it's sort of,
there are
how do
any
we combine these two groups? What do we want them to do? What do they want to do? Because looking at this for what we want them to do here, there's not a lot of what we want them to do. It's very vague.
Point of order. Mr. Mayor, point of order. I move that we actually table 402 until we can have, thorough discussion as to what the committee may or may not be doing, since we've made so many changes to it, for the sake of doing it. I move that we table 402 until we can have further discussion. Let's say in about 60 days, that gives us time to
No, there's no reason for 60
understand.
days. It's my seat.
Hold
I was
on,
under
hold on, one at a time, we don't interrupt each other. So I understand what you're saying. I hear your point. Okay. You'd like to say something?
There's no reason for this committee to sit on the sidelines that's 2 more months. No. This committee can get started, and in that context, as we take a look at what staff has outlined, we can get started with that conversation and facilitate. That's a good point to bring up, but if we turn around and say you are stuck at quarterly, what if they need more to get started?
If I can make a point, we need to move forward on this, and my
Yes.
argument, I understand where you're coming from, but the argument is if we don't move forward on this, then we don't have the board to take the information to or to ask questions of.
Correct.
So we must move forward on this motion tonight. We must form this board so that we can then talk to them about what it is that they want to do and tighten it up.
Correct.
So this is a
That's my point.
technicality, it's a legal step. We must make this step first so that we can make any potential changes.
Correct.
So, and that would, any other changes about what their roles would be a resolution, not an ordinance.
Point of order, Mayor, I disagree with your, with your assessment. Having said that, we've had a Parks Board, I sat on it, I knew exactly what we did. We've had a bicycle board, they knew exactly what they had to do. All we're doing is kind of scrambling the eggs here and putting them together. All we've changed is quorum and what have you, so both groups know exactly what their duties are as far as when the meetings would be and what have you. I mean, if we want to change the meeting dates or what have you, I mean, we can make that motion here. But since we're having so much discussion about what this group might do, and apparently we're trying to change what they were doing in the past, again, I would ask my fellow commissioners that we table 402 until we can go ahead and discuss as a group, especially, what we want to do with this committee and everything. All we've decided so far is just to rename it.
Okay, you want to put that in the form of a motion, and we can see if we can get a second, and we'll do a vote.
I move that we table 402 for further discussion.
Is there a second? Without a second, the motion dies. So now we're back to addressing.
I'll make a motion to approve item 402.
Second.
Okay. We've already done public input. The motion is made by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Crusoe. Christian.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
No.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Sorry. Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Okay, and the motion passes. Okay, that then brings us to item 403, the first reading of ordinance 2025-11, updating the stormwater rate. So shall we read by title only? I'll ask for that.
Make a motion to read by title only.
Objection.
Okay.
I think a tax increase should be read every single word and punctuation by the city attorney.
Okay, would you, okay, when we get after discussion, if you'd like to make that motion and see if you can get a second to read that 100-page
No,
document.
objection, no, point of order, point of
Okay.
order.
Okay, I
If
understand.
we all
I
have to
understand.
agree. We all have to agree if we want it to be read by name only.
Okay, and, okay, so,
Go get a cup of coffee.
okay, how many pages
3
is this
pages.
document?
It's not that long.
Not bad, okay. Okay,
Take a drink of water.
yeah.
Make sure I have plenty of water for this.
And that's an issue, I've never heard that before, but
Well-
it's okay, you have the right to do so, okay.
This is, okay. This is the second time in 26 years. So, it's been a while. Ordinance number 2025-11, a rate ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Florida, updating the stormwater rates as provided in section 19-164, subparagraph A, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Whereas the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Florida has determined it's in the best interest of the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of the City of Winter Springs to provide a stormwater management utility to manage and control stormwater within the system. And whereas the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Florida has determined it to be in the best interest of the safety, health, and welfare and citizens of the City of Winter Springs to continue to provide a just and equitable stormwater utility fee to fund the stormwater management utility system. And whereas Section 19-164, subparagraph A, provides for the stormwater utility to be adopted by, a stormwater utility fee to be adopted by ordinance from time to time. Whereas the City Commission recognizes that the city's stormwater utility fee has not been adjusted for approximately 20 years and has not kept pace with the increasing costs of operating and maintaining the city's stormwater management utility system. And whereas the City has engaged a rate consultant to conduct a detailed rate study that the city manager has advised will be completed and presented to the City Commission later this year. And whereas the city has experienced more significant flooding in recent years because of more intense rainfall events, including hurricanes. And whereas the city has experienced a significant increase in demand for stormwater services and anticipates rising costs for capital projects, which are expected to continue to exceed revenues collected in the Stormwater Management Utility Fund, used solely for stormwater system expenses pursuant to Section 9-167 of the City Code. And whereas the city manager and staff recommend an interim stormwater rate adjustment to help offset current and future service and capital expenses pending completion and consideration of the ongoing stormwater rate study of the City Commission. And whereas this ordinance is enacted pursuant to Florida Municipal Home Rule Powers Act, Chapter, and there's a correction, Chapter 403, Florida statutes, and other applicable law authorizing a municipality to set rates, fees, and charges for public utility services. And whereas it's in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Winter Springs to amend the rates for stormwater services provided by the city. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs hereby ordains as follows. Section 1, recitals. The foregoing recitals are hereby incorporated therein by this reference. Section 2, new ERU rate established. The stormwater management utility fee shall be $10 and no cents, and then the numerical $10 per ERU, and shall be calculated for each developed property as provided for in Section 19-164. Section 3, repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions. All prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions adopted by the City Commission or parts of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of the conflict. Section 4, incorporation into the code. This ordinance shall be incorporated into the Winter Springs City Code, and any section or paragraph number or letter in any heading may be changed or modified as necessary to effectuate the foregoing. Section 5, severability. If any action, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, word, or provision of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, whether for substantive, procedural, or other reason, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 6, effective date. The stormwater rate set forth in this ordinance shall become effective on June 1, 2025. It is the intent of this ordinance to begin imposing the stormwater rate during the start of the next full utility billing cycle. Adopted by the City Commission of the City of Winter Springs, Florida, in a regular meeting assembled on a soon-to-be-determined day of a soon-to-be-determined month of 2025. And it has the attestation of the city clerk, Christian Gowan, CMC, city clerk, and then the signature, City of Winter Springs, Florida, signed by Kevin McCann, mayor. and approved to legal form and sufficiency for the city of Winter Springs only by myself, the city attorney. And then below, it has first reading, which is April 14th, 2025, and then space for public advertisement, and then second reading and public hearing. And that is the ordinance read in its entirety. There you go.
Discussion. Well, I have a question. As a city attorney, are you paid by the hour?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. All right. That was expensive. Okay.
Aren't rate increases funny, Mr. Mayor?
No, I did not say funny. I said that that was
Wait.
expensive.
Sure,
I think it
sure,
was-
sure seems to be quite a lot of laughter up here when we're trying to double our residents' rates. I can't wait for the laughter at the 10X.
Sir, nobody's laughing, except I would like, respond to one, and I'm not responding to your comments. I think what I would like to say is make a comment.
Don't we have an ordinance about all these comments? Let's move forward. If you guys have the votes to pass the increase, let's just go ahead and make the motion.
Can we be
Commissioner
gentlemen?
Resnick, it's your tax increase.
Can we just be gentlemen and have a cordial, a collegial body, have a discussion? My point that I was trying to make.
Point of order, call the question.
The point that I was trying to make.
You have to
is
raise
that
your voice, Commissioner
the
Resnick, just to pass a tax increase?
Gentlemen, please, sir, please, it's a collegial body. I'm asking you to be collegial. Let me speak.
And under
so we can
parliamentary
get through it.
procedure, I'm asking that we call the question.
And I will do so when I finish my sentence. My sentence is, and my point, I think, that I have every right to make as an elected official, is that if we had the nice gal from Hacienda Village that came in earlier, and she was talking about the impact to our seniors on these increases. And I am not insensitive to those increases to those folks who live in Hacienda Village. But the reality is that the city has spent millions of dollars to protect Hacienda Village, millions of dollars, and repeated floods, repeated airboats going in to rescue stranded residents of that same community over and over again. I've got lots of photographs. I was out there in waist-deep water during Hurricane Ian. And all of those homes that were unlivable, that had to be ripped down, not rebuilt, torn out, we have a responsibility to those folks. We have to save each other's homes. We have a responsibility as neighbors to take a little bit of a hit. We can't allow hundreds of homes to continue to be lost over and over and over again and pretend that this isn't happening, or put our heads in the sand. And after 20 years, with inflation has been at 50%, whatever that number is, over 20 years, and we've never had a rate increase, we have if there's one thing this dais is charged with, it's safety of our residents. That is our number one responsibility. With that, I'm done. If Deputy Mayor.
All right. Since, Commissioner Diaz, you like to throw things across, let me share a couple things with you. One, you didn't do the hard work up here for 2 years. And in that context, the lady that came from Hacienda Village, much like you just mentioned, and Commissioner Bruce, you and I also walked Hacienda Village and saw the devastation there. Let's go back to 2017. 2017, there was a hurricane. In 2017, after the hurricane, the city was sent out for a study, and the study came back and said it is our job to maintain the creeks every single year. Maintain. We also partnered with Hacienda Village at that time. We had them pay a fee, and we, the city, paid a fee, and promised them that we would cover their property to the best of our ability if we put up a wall. What ends up happening is we did not maintain the creeks. We did not do what we needed to do. Another hurricane comes along. Then we reach out to FEMA and we say, FEMA, can you give us money to clear out the creeks? Hacienda Village floods. A lot of your district there, Commissioner Diaz, floods. A lot of Commissioner Bruce's district floods because we weren't prepared. So you can call it what you want, a tax increase or whatever it is. We should have been increasing it based on CPI and other such things all the way along just to maintain the creeks. This is not to do any additional improvement, infrastructure improvement. This is just maintenance. That's necessary. For the first 2 years I came back, that was my conversation. That was Commissioner Bruce's conversation. If I'm using your words incorrectly, you can correct me. And we were ignored. Then another hurricane comes along. And we go back to FEMA and we say, please, give us money. Let's do this again. And now, just now, we're clearing out the creeks again with FEMA money. We can't afford to keep asking FEMA. Take a look at some of the pictures you'll see, and I believe, Mr. Manager, at 6 feet of sediment we cleared out from one of the inlets because we haven't been doing our job. That's what this is about. This is not about taxing people. This is about doing the right thing because we haven't done it for the period of time we needed to do it. To sit up here and do the hard work and say, well, you know, I just want to cut into your pocketbook, no, that's not the case. I have to pay it too. But to turn around and say, you know what, we aren't cutting this or cutting that, or we can save money here, we can save money there, that's to the detriment of everybody else who may have to worry about things. Now, to everybody else who's listening, this is the first part. Get the maintenance of the creeks done. Get the maintenance of the stormwater drains done. Culverts will need to be increased where they need to be increased. You know, anybody who knows a little bit, and that's me, knows a little bit, knows we have significant work to do in this city, and we can't do it for free. I urge anybody, and that includes you, Commissioner Diaz, go there, talk to our finance manager, open up the books, you find where we can cut. You find where in 20 years prior to that, because it was what Commissioner that was up here before was the last one to put the increase through, find the money. Don't sit up here and say, it's there, find it. Unless you do, this is to keep us safe. Now, if we have what NOAA says is going to be a couple more hurricanes this year, I hope we don't, but at least we'll be prepared. And I'm preparing us, at least with my vote, for the future. That's where I'm looking at.
Is there further discussion?
Yes, there is. I pressed the button.
Okay. Commissioner?
Well, Commissioner Resnick, thank you very much for your eloquent words. In that 20-year period of time, you were here for more than half of that period of time. So obviously, as the senior career politician up here, you've seen it all. And we appreciate your wisdom on the topic. So thank you for that. And I appreciate your invitation asking me to find the cuts, because I can assure you we've got them lined up, and we'll have that discussion during the budget, unless we'd like to start discussing rescission items for the current budget, and I'd be more than happy to start there as well. But having said that, you did mention that for many, many years, through a number of 20 years, the city did not do its job. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's incompetence, if it's negligence. I don't know what you're referring to there, that the city didn't do their job. But let's just take it at face value. The city did not do its job. However, the city did spend money in that period of time. Money was spent. Therefore, the city used funds for other things that at the time it felt were more important than clearing out the creeks. So if you could give me a list of all the items that were so much more important than the safety and health and welfare of the residents that we decided to spend money on when we could have been spending money on the creeks, I'd love to hear what that list of important items were. Number one, since you were inviting me to show you cuts, I'd like for you to show me what those worthwhile expenses were. And the other part to that would be if we have said that for the last 20 we didn't spend the money on what we were supposed to, but now we have to charge everybody else so we could do something that we should have been doing, then maybe we need to be looking at items that we could be removing from other costs and expenses to go ahead and earmark for this. You guys are talking about a rate study. We obviously know that typical government, we're going to go ahead and have an end in mind. You guys have already decided at what number you want this fee to be. That's fine, no problem. And you're going to have a study that is going to get you to that number. Hey, I'm a statistics guy. I know how that works. That's not a problem. I know what you're going to do. But I think that the residents should know what you are doing and what you want to do. So, I mean, if we're supposed to have it at so much higher, then don't stop at the 10. Make the motion for the number that you think it should be right now. We don't have to wait for a rate study. In fact, save the money of the rate study and apply it to this instead, because we have studies about studies about studies. Ultimately, we've spent money on other things that clearly we decided that entertaining the people was more important than the creeks. And now, here we go again, and this is exactly what the budget's going to sound like. So if you guys wanted a preview, pass a tax increase or you're going to get mugged. Pass a tax increase or you're going to drown. Pass a tax increase or you're water. Obviously, government likes to work, earlier with laughter. So I think we know where I stand.
Commissioner Crusoe.
Commissioner Diaz, you want to save $1 million, you want to save $2 million, correct? You want to find it, correct? Yes? I'll take that as a yes. I want to save $100 million, okay? I'm willing to put this aside and give you the opportunity to come in here, meet with staff, find that money. Since the last meeting to today, how many meetings have you had to try to find that money? Okay, I'll take that as a, I don't know.
Well, you could take it as whatever you want. I don't answer to you, I answer to the people.
You want help finding money. I'm willing to stand here and table this. If you want to come in here and do the work, find the money. You say the word when you're going to come in here, find the money. Find me $100 million and I'll be your partner forever. Find it.
Is your $100 million your wastewater plant?
Say again?
Is the $100 million your wastewater plant? Because you're throwing a number out.
I'm just telling you. I'd love to save the
you have a lot of
$100 million.
One at a time. Commissioner Crusoe, you have the
I'd love to save the residents $100 million. Let's see what you find. I'm willing to wait. You say when you're going to come in here, meet with staff, and I'm with you. When can you start doing it?
The questions probably shouldn't.
Well, it's a legitimate question. You know, we're talking about finding $1 million here, finding $2 million. I'm all for it. I want to know when it's going to start and how much effort he's willing to put in to find it. We all want to know that. We could all sit here and say we want to save this, we want to save that. I'm killing myself over wastewater. Sleep over it. I'm saying it. And I'm willing to listen to you to find that money, and I'm with you. That's it. It's as simple as that. Let's not talk, let's do.
Well, maybe if you could stay on point. We're talking about stormwater, not wastewater.
I am on point.
No, you're talking about wastewater.
No.
You've said wastewater several times. Can we pull the tapes?
I'm telling you, you want to table the tax increase. Let's table the tax increase.
Okay, enough. Listen, one at a time.
Let's go to public.
One at a time, okay? Seriously, okay. I will repeat something that I said several months ago that got people's attention when I made the point that we have spent $6 million on structure since Hurricane Ian. We haven't done nothing, and although, but the deputy mayor and I collegially disagree sometimes, and that's okay. We respect each other. I'd like that respect to continue with all of us. Let's act like adults and set the standard for the community. Let's take a deep breath and try to set the tone.
Mayor,
maybe. Yeah.
I think I'm being respectful. I'm just asking a simple, legitimate question for the residents.
Okay.
Someone wants to save money. You have to put in the work to save the money.
Okay. Let's move forward.
Thank you.
Public input?
All right. So We've read it. Is there, if there's no further discussion, since it is a public hearing item 403, if anyone would like to address the commission on stormwater fees specifically, sir.
So again, I'm Robin Nealon, 1033 Northern Way. I've been here since the 90s. What you don't know is I own Sanford Electric. I'm an electrical engineer. So I've been in construction for many, 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 many years, right out of UCF. So in construction here, when I get your bill from the 90s and it says water, wastewater bill, I don't have drainage out front. I have septic tank at my house. I always wondered what that bill was. So it's a water runoff tax. All I'm saying is, look, this is probably the best board I've seen since I've been here in the 90s. Everybody cares. Seems like you all really care. The fight really isn't whether you care. It seems like the fight is where am I going to get the funds from to get this resolved, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. So from my side, don't insult my intelligence by calling it a fee. It's not a fee. I don't have that service. You're not giving me a service. I have septic. It's a tax. Call it a tax. So therefore, why don't you do it as revenue tax from the community as a sales tax on the sales tax avenue? Here's the buck you're getting. The governor is trying to push no taxes on your property. He's trying to push your property. I'm getting ready to retire. When I retire, I don't want to pay taxes. I paid for 40 years on my property. I don't want to continue paying taxes, right? I mean, the governor's pushing it. There's several other large people trying to push property taxes. So the problem is you're getting people in the community that says, I don't want to pay tax. It's a tax. Do it as a sales tax. Do it as a commission on the sales tax. You got revenue in the city. The city has one of the most robust revenue streams you got. You get a lot of revenue in sales. I know I do a lot of revenue.
No.
You get a point in sales tax. That's all my point is. I would go after the sales tax for the city. And I appreciate your time.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Weissman and David?
Leah Weissman, 113 Brookshire Court. In Winding Hollow, the creek is behind the homes. There's an extensive distance between the creek and the homes, and they still had 3 feet of water, several hurricanes, and 1 tropical storm because the water can't go anywhere. Now you can clean the culvert, but then I find out, oh no, there's actually a construction problem. When they changed from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, something is really weird. It's not big enough, and so it could have been done. When they said something in 2017 in that report, none of it was done. They had recommendations as far back as, I think it was 1990, because I did all the research on this. What you're saying is that $54, I believe it is, the difference, because it's not $5 up, it's $4.50, because mine's $5.50. Someone's missing somewhere in there. But for $50, I would think most people would say, if I can do it, I would gladly give the $50, because I have neighbors, 2 of them, had to leave the neighborhood because they had such panic attacks every time it rained or a storm's coming. And I'm like, gosh, I'm so glad Mr. Sweet decided to do something. I was told that creeks didn't count, that it was in my neighborhood flooding it. I'm like, what? So that people that in the past didn't do anything does not mean we have to say we can't justify doing it now. I mean, I'm not going to go back and try to find them and say, see, they did something wrong. It doesn't work that way. But I know for the fact, in my street, you're talking about several feet of water, and we're not that close. It was not the person who did the development caused the problem because there's a lot of distance. We have added all these ponds and stuff so that it would gather water. They did it right. So my thing is, if there's money to save somewhere, find it and stop talking about it. But then also, don't make people wait for for a few more years of a study of something so that we can get something done. Because to my understanding, that $5 or $10 now, if it was, is the only money that goes to help us with the creeks and floodwaters. only. So then if the state decides or the president decides FEMA doesn't exist anymore, then what? We're not independent at all. It gets worse, but I won't even go to the, but I don't want to flood anymore, basically. And I'm seriously, 2 neighbors moved just because they couldn't handle the panic every time hurricane season. And I'm kind of like that. When we get closer to June, I get nervous. So thank you.
Mr. Hamstra, I appreciate you being here. I guess, and if you don't mind, certainly name, professional address, and maybe your title and what you do for the city.
Sure. Excuse me, David Hamstra, Pegasus Engineering, Winter Springs, Florida, and I'm the city stormwater consultant. For some of the newer commissioners, I just want to give a backdrop of what's on the books already, that's under design, soon to be bid, or we're waiting for the final agreements from the different governments. Right now, we have 11 projects that have been underway for the last couple of years at various levels, totaling, before we get reimbursements, because we don't know what's going to happen in DC right now, roughly at $12 million. The big one being Tuscarora Crossings, the pond repair, which will be a $2.5 million project. Wetland Park outfall improvements, which protects Winter Springs Village, over $1 million. And then we have 7 or 8 projects that are grant funded that total another $6 or $7 million. So we have to float the money. Eventually we get reimbursed. So we're talking, as we stand here today, with nothing new, when nothing comes out of Kimley Horn's master plan, we're right now looking at $14 million. If I believe when I read the article correctly, with the increase, you're raising maybe $1 million extra a year. So I just feel it's imperative, whatever you want to call it. We have too much in the books now to jeopardize delaying it any further moving forward. And with that, any questions y'all have? Otherwise, I'll sit down. So,
I think with the engineer here and making some very important points, $14 million. Are there questions for the engineer that's been with the city for many, many years about the history and where we're going and where the money's coming from? Now's the time. There seems to be a lot of misunderstandings. Commissioner Bruce.
Hi, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question that I heard regarding this proposed fee increase is on the west side, as we spoke last time, there's a lot of developments that were developed prior to the stormwater requirements. So maybe they don't have stormwater ponds or retention ponds. Will some projects that are slated now or in the future benefit them? They don't have stormwater, but is there a way that we could create for them so that it would be able to be better for flooding in that vicinity?
So I believe I've been involved a little bit with the Kimley Horn work that they're doing. We are looking at old and new, older being west of Tuscarora. So there are some identified areas on the west part of town, Sheola, Moss, Hayes, even further west in the area. And you're right, all this was built pre-current criteria, no stormwater ponds, not enough pipes or inlets to properly capture and convey water. What I just talked about tonight is just to fix the things we know, and I look forward to when Kimley Horn finishes the work, and we're going to help them a little bit to identify any more additional retrofits to protect some of the older areas. But that is the plan, is to spread the improvements throughout the city.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Mr. Hamstra? He's a wealth of information. Thank you for
Thank
your
you, sir.
partnership. It is important.
Thank you.
I will say one thing. I've said it for a long time over and over again. We will solve the wastewater treatment plants. We'll get those plants rebuilt. Stormwater will be an issue that this community will face for decades. Madam? Yeah.
Here we go.
Karen Meyer, 741 Andover Circle. The issue before the dais right now is item 403, wastewater financial support. That's all that should be discussed during this time.
Stormwater.
Stormwater, I'm sorry, yes, stormwater financial support. At the previous commission meeting, our city manager was very clear that we are just skimming by with equipment, with staff, and with the financial support needed to deal with our stormwater. That doesn't include the future. I supporting the future. We cannot, again, find ourselves in the same situation like our wastewater treatment plants. It was kicked down the road. This should not be kicked down the road. And my final comment, at the previous commission meeting, a lady came and she asked for services for stormwater maintenance in her community. She asked for a service. Residents of this community should expect to support the welfare of the community, and that includes paying for the services.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address this issue? Ms. Freeburn.
Name and address again, or?
Sure, it is
Do we
because-
know it?
Yeah, they
now?
won't. But it's for those that are listening and for the public record, sorry.
Linda Freeburn, 1604 Cougar. I agree. If you're going to ask for an increase, it's important to look for a mitigation, right? If there's something there, if there's something in the budget that can be cut that you can identify as, all right, we don't need to do this anymore because we have all these other expenses, it's important to look for it and consider it. That being said, costs have gone up 20 years with no increase. I get it, you know? But you got to make sure that the money that you collect is spent on city property. We have a lot of ponds that are on private property. So if we're going to start adhering to some kind of a maintenance program for ponds and creeks on city property, we need to require homeowners associations to do that as well. It's all interconnected, make sure that everybody's taking care of their property. And I don't know if it should, that cost should be absorbed by the community. That's why these communities were approved, they were built. When they were built, we said, put a pond in so it collects the water. They should be maintained. Not only in our city, but in all the other cities that feed us. All the other cities that drain through Winter Springs. There has to be something that keeps them, makes it mandatory for them to maintain their own systems. So when the water gets to Winter Springs, it can go through. The other problem that we have is that the St. John's backs up and sometimes there's nothing you can do. So there's another problem that can't be fixed, but more money, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a valid point. Anyone else that would like to specifically address this issue? Sir, Mr. Gallo, how are you this evening?
Fine, thank you, sir. Art Gallo, 199 Nandina Terrace. And I want to give a little insight into an HOA perspective. I live in an HOA, Howell Creek Reserve. I'm not here representing my HOA, although I am on the board. And I didn't realize till I think the mayor brought it up last meeting that stormwater fee, and by the way, I am for the increase, whether we find the money through budget or tax, but we need help in stormwater. Now, I didn't realize until it was discussed last week that there's a credit or 25%, whatever you call it, off of that stormwater fee. So I always wondered why I'd hear from the dais the fee was $5.50, but I said, my water bill says $4.13. What's going on? Well, and I want to tell you, I'm pretty proud of what our HOA has done. Without even knowing that, because we don't see The HOA does not see that money that comes out of that $5.50 credit. But we're very concerned about stormwater there. Matter of fact, and don't quote me on the numbers exact because I'm not the treasurer, but in the past 2 years, we have 5 retention ponds. And we know we're responsible for them. And I think over the last 2 years, we've had to clean them out. We've spent at least $50,000 on that. That's not a cheap thing. That doesn't even include the times we'd have to run video cameras down the storm drains to find out where the cracks are, why the water's not going there. There's a lot that goes into that, and we're just an HOA. Then this is cost shared, as you all know, by all our homeowners. And we tried to be very frugal with our homeowners' money, just as you do as a commission. So what I'm saying is, I agree we need to increase our stormwater fee. I'll leave it to you to figure out what that is. I support that credit, and I hope it remains. And now you've given me some insight that I could take back to my board about what we should apply to our budget in this regard, if you maintain that, because it is expensive. So the residents, and we're one in HOAs, we need help in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public input. Commissioner Diaz, I see your button is, would you like to?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a comment too when.
Okay, so we'll go to the commissioner and then to the city manager.
Yeah, I can appreciate everybody's passion about the topic. August 24th, 1992, I went through Hurricane Andrew. I know what complete devastation looks like in an area. As a lifelong Floridian, I understand hurricanes. Not only do I understand them personally, having been lived through them my entire life, but also even from an educational point of view. I went to the University of Miami, and one of the courses that I took in my years was a course that went over a lot of the weather patterns that affect Florida and Miami, and the University of Miami has one of the most renowned schools of atmospheric and sciences and what have you in Key Biscayne, Florida. The reason I bring that up is because this isn't about stormwater. This ordinance is about a tax. This is not about stormwater. We agree. In fact, I can appreciate everybody's passion here in wanting to address stormwater issues that affect the city. We all share that common understanding, and you know, I'm more analytical, Commissioner Resnick, so I don't speak as eloquently as you do. You're more accustomed to the, you know, talking to folks daily and what have you about things, and you know, for the relationships of things. But in my case, the way I look at it is very simple. Taxes should be voluntary. And without getting into an entire conversation about tax and tax policy right now, we're going to have that conversation when the budget comes. The reality is that I asked a very simple question in the last commission meeting, and the most laughable statement tonight was the clutching of the pearls and the, you know, by Commissioner Caruso to say that you know, we had to find $100 million. I asked the finance director to if we could find $1 million, maybe even two, since we were trying to raise just $1 million. Clearly, the gentleman that came up said that we need $14 million. I'm not opposed to capital expenditures that are going to increase property values and increase the net worth of the city, not only as an institution, but obviously as residents and basically taxpayers and call it shareholders, if you will, of the city. However, it's $1 million that we are just trying to willy-nilly raise today. All I asked the finance director was, hey, can you find me $1 million? Her answer was, I'm not prepared today. That's fine. Now we're a few weeks later. I don't know if the finance director is prepared today to show us that there's $1 million available. But again, it's about what do we find to be more important. Instead of raising the $1 million, you know, by ordinance, the way we're doing now, all I asked was, hey, until we have the conversation about the capital expenditures coming, you know, we're going to have a budget conversation in a few months. Why don't we go ahead and move $1 million from the city over to the utility fund, which we can do. It can go inbound, it can't go outbound, I understand that. And that's it, and we're good to go, and this doesn't even have to come up. But instead, we are hell-bent on raising this, and you know what? Again, let's just not be intellectually dishonest. If we need 14 million, then guess what? You're only raising $1 million here. Do it 14x. Make the ordinance right now 14x, but you won't. You won't do the 14x. You know why? Because you know that there would be a riot in the city if you did 14x overnight. So what you do is you do it little piece by little piece. And by the way, that's the way that you chip away at freedom, and that's the way you chip away at liberty, and this is the way you keep on raising taxes. Hey, it's only $5. It's only a little bit. It's only a little bit. Well, guess what? That little bit adds up. All I asked the finance director was last commission meeting, it's on tape, hey, can you find us $1 million? I don't know. Obviously we can't. We have plenty of time for giving away trees. We have plenty of time for Easter egg hunts. We have plenty of time for fishing. We have plenty of time for all sorts of activities. We have plenty of time to do lots of things in the city, but we seem to not have $1 million for stormwater. So instead, and yes, I use the term punish because I remind you the power to tax is the power to destroy. So I'm taking it right back to our founding. Okay, and yes, if we want the $1 million, all I'm asking is move the $1 million from the city over to the utility, and you got your $1 million. We table this, we'll have a discussion about the $14 million come budget time. That's all I asked for, but apparently we are hell-bent on raising that $1 million today. Go have at it.
Okay. If the city manager, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple points. So the essence of an enterprise fund, such as the stormwater utility, which is what we're talking about, is to ensure that revenues cover the expenditures. That is not the case. Today we have, based on high-level forecasting, looking at and still waiting on FY24 actuals, which will help kind of solidify and reassure this, that the funding existing operations is estimated today in the FY25 budget has a revenue loss of about 71% below the operating expense. So that means that increasing the stormwater utility rate to $9.50, essentially going up by an ERU of $4, would just break even on operating expenses. So that does not account for providing funding for vehicle replacements, additional new crews, vehicle additions, capital projects, and a number of projects that were referenced. To that point, as we're clearly our expenditures are exceeding revenues, and I know they'll probably hear the argument we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. But the reality is, since the inception of the stormwater utility rate, which none of us up here created, that's what we have as a platform to maintain our stormwater in the city of Winter Springs. That's what we're talking about. And the reality of that is that it's increased once, and the last increase that came up was May of 2005. So it'll be 20 years next month since this rate has had any increase, with substantial increases to expenses across the board. Just the cost of doing anything, as Mr. Gallo said, I mean, if it costs you $50,000, it probably costs the city $300,000 on the same effort, with public procurement. And those costs, it's just to think that we can do the same or more with the same amount of revenue coming in, it frankly is just ludicrous. The reality is, as I said, just to maintain where we're at, our rate needs to go up 4 ERUs, $4 on our ERU, just to kind of maintain, never mind addressing. Mr. Hampshire, who's been involved with us as our stormwater consultant for many years now, referenced all these projects. Guess what? The majority of those projects, not a single one of them was funded by you as your ratepayer out of the Stormwater Utility Fund. The majority of those projects were actually funded out of another tax, which would be your penny sales tax through Seminole County, using third generation, second gen, third gen, mostly third gen recently, as a utilization of being able to fund some of those capital projects. That money can't be used for maintenance, so therefore we have to utilize our local funds to maintain and do O&M work. But many of your capital projects that Mr. Hampshire referenced, to the tune of $12 million, have come from penny sales tax, have come from federal grants through FEMA and a number of other initiatives, NRCS funding, which I'm going to reference, at $1.6 million, 100% paid without a single penny provided by our local tax funding to be able to address all of the creeks citywide debris removal, sediment crossing removal at the tune of $1.6 million. So the reality is, yes, we're barely skating by, and the continuation of continuing to do this, those asks continue to grow. I have a meeting regarding the ponds and the issues within this city every single day and every single week. There's a request from a commissioner, and they can all attest to it. There's a request from residents on stormwater-related issues more than any other issue that this city faces on a daily, weekly basis. So the reality is we're in a dire need where we need to address as a city 20 years, whatever that reason may be, that we have not had an increase, we're facing a real issue. And do I think it's going to end at $10? No. I think when we see that work that Kimley Horn is doing, we see the work that Raf Tellis is doing on the rate setting, and the actual needs that this city has to address our stormwater issues, that will probably be a recommendation to exceed the $10. But I think today, in the interest of hurricane season right around the corner and the number of issues that we have, just preliminary, we need to see that increase to be able to start to see some revenue realization to be able to address these real issues. Yes, we've made a lot of strides, and I know it can be difficult to see, but in the last, particularly in the last 18, 24 months with projects and that ongoing and you're actively seeing out there today, that money being put to use and utilization. As you see with these creeks, we have 2 invitation to bids for creek debris removal as well as sediment removal closing on May 9th and May 16th. Hopefully that work will start by mid-June. That's $1.6 million in projects that have not come out of this utility fund. So just, again, stressing that there is absolutely a need and the demand is there, but the revenue doesn't support it.
Commissioner, actually, I have Commissioner Bruce and then Commissioner Diaz. Commissioner Caruso, did you want to speak? No, okay, so Commissioner Bruce, you're up.
Just real quick, because I have gotten some hate letters regarding this stormwater increase due to some erroneous information being put out there, and I just want to make sure that my stance is clear. We will continue to cut unexpended expenses. But I want to say this, in defense of Holly's response 2 weeks ago saying she wasn't prepared, the fact of the matter is, last year when we asked her that same question, she said, I've done everything and anything to cut costs, but we still have to increase our millage by point whatever it was. And so she had tried so hard so that we didn't have to increase that, but we had no choice. And so that right there shows you that there was nothing that she or anybody in the staff or the city manager or us as a board last year could find anything to cut. Now, I'm so excited that we all can, as a collective body, look at the budget for 2025 and find things that might not be needed. And then we can have both. We can have the $5 increase, and we can also see if we can cut expenses. But we do both at the same time. We don't put this off so that we can do that, because every single year we have tried to do this, and every year we're going to try to get better. And hopefully with your input, Paul, we will be able to have some more information, and we can cut more expenses that we maybe have not seen in the past. But for now, I am very, very concerned with the stormwater fund. We are underfunded in this department, as in a lot of others, and this rate increase is necessary.
Commissioner Diaz.
And I appreciate Commissioner Bruce's point. And again, like I said, if we're raising $1 million today, let's move $1 million from the city into this fund. You got your $1 million. How about this? We all agree to disagree, but then we go ahead and we got our $1 million into the stormwater fund. So I'm sure the finance director has her HP 12C with her. I've got mine with me. I did the compound rate of return on the $5 a month for 20 years. And if we're looking at, if we want to, it's very convenient how everybody now uses inflation, the post-COVID era inflation that was created by government largesse. And now government largesse is going to save us because I'm from the government and I'm here to help. $5 a month times 12 is $60. So let's just use annual numbers because it's easier. We'll compound it using 5% a year, which exceeds the rate of inflation over 20 years. Because if you all recall, over the last 20 years, we have not had what the rate of inflation is today, which again is in question what the rate of inflation is versus other costs and what have you that are being added to it. That would put then the $5 that we've been talking about for 20 years, that would put it today at $159.20, which breaks down to $13.27 a month. So if at 5% compounding for 20 years, okay, let's just say 20 years ago we agreed to do it automatically, forget even bringing it back up to the board. Let's just say 20 years ago we said, hey, we're going to take this $5, $60 a year, we're going to compound it 5% a year for 20 years. Today, we'd be at $159.20, which is $13.27. So I'd like to know why then, since this is such a dire need, and look, I get it, we just do not have $1 million to move from the city to this fund. I get it, we have to raise a tax, we don't have the money, we have to give people trees, we have to give people little Easter egg hunts and all fishing camps and stuff. We don't have $1 million to move. Why then isn't the proposal for $13.27 a month or $159.20? Why don't we just then use the number that is supposed to honestly be the one at 5% compounding rate? What I'd like to know now is if we want to compound at a higher rate, because 5% is a pretty fair number, and that would put us at $159.20, which is $13.27 a month. So if it's so necessary, why is the ordinance then for less? Are we still going to drown? Are we still going to get mugged? Are we still going to like not have all our services?
If we're done, I would like to make one point before we move on.
I'll make a motion to approve item 403.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is made, but I was speaking, and I would like to finish this statement. I want to make sure everyone absolutely understands facts. We're talking about money and where we're going to cut $1 million here and there. Winter Springs has the lowest millage rate in all of Central Florida. Let me finish my point before I'm interrupted as I see it coming. Out of 7 counties, Seminole County has 7 municipalities, and then there's the county, right? If you just do the set, right, we're roughly 50 communities that make up the 7 counties of Central Florida. We have the lowest property tax rate in all of Central Florida. There is one caveat to that is Lake Mary. If you fold in the fire department, Lake Mary actually has a lower millage rate than we do. So because I am not intellectually dishonest, I'd like to make sure that everybody understands the facts. We have the lowest expenditure per resident. We have the lowest ratio of city employees to residents. We run a tight ship. Political rhetoric and the naysaying and scare tactics that people are saying we're using on stormwater things can also be used to stir people up against tax increases, if that's what you want to call it. Look, folks, we run a tight ship. We should be proud. We lead the pack at being fiscally responsible. We are the best at it. I challenge you to find another municipality in Central Florida that does it better than we do. This is nonsense. Facts are facts. Our millage rate stands on its own. If you have a cut, find it. I'd like to see it. Holly was right last year when she said, I don't know where that we have no ability to make further cuts. We have dire needs. We have hundreds of families, our neighbors, that are losing their homes over and over again, and we're not willing to do anything about it? We can't make any more cuts. Or look, if they're out there, I'm all ears. Like Commissioner Caruso said, I'm all ears. But there are facts, reality, and then there's rhetoric. We need to live in reality. We are challenged with the #1 priority of this job is to protect the safety of our residents. Let's move on. I'm done. I apologize. Anyone else?
So, Mr. Mayor, we don't have $1 million. I'm not asking you to cut anything. We do not have $1 million to move. you're saying the city does not have $1 million, because you threw some pretty big numbers last year out. So I'm surprised that we don't have $1 million to move over into the fund instead of raising taxes.
Let me
I'm just asking for $1 million.
That's not sustainable, because then every year we're going to need $1 million.
Right now, until we get to the budget, so we can go ahead and have the capital expenditure conversation. We're a few months away from that, and we're supposed to have a rate study, which obviously we know what that means, by the end of the year. So we're going to have that conversation before the fiscal year starts.
Can I answer the question? You proposed a question. Do we have the $1 million to move? Do we have reserve? Yes, we do. But guess how we get those 1 or 2% interest rates on SRF funds? By having deep reserves. Sure, we can blow through our rainy day fund. We can blow through our reserves. But then the cost of borrowing the $100 million, look, these are facts. Then the reality of borrowing that $100 million to build the wastewater treatment plants, then our interest rate goes to 10%, 8%, 7%, as opposed to the 1 or 2% that we're getting. There are requirements. These are not my theories. These are state statutes. These are things have consequences. There's reality. We've got to let go of the rhetoric and talk about reality. We cannot deplete our reserves and be able to borrow that money.
Okay,
I know it's complicated, but it's...
Let's keep moving.
Yeah, I agree.
We have a motion on the table.
There is a motion on the table.
And a second.
And can I get a repeat of the motion? Who made the motion?
I did.
And it
Victoria
is.
seconded it.
It is. Would you repeat the motion?
To approve item 403 as presented.
Thanks. And it's seconded by Commissioner Bruce?
Yes.
Christian?
Commissioner Diaz.
No.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Caruso.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Lively, it's a democracy at work. Okay, lively debate. Okay, item 501, discussion of...
500.
I'm sorry, thank you, from the regular agenda, thanks. Winter Springs Boulevard Speed Study. Now, I will, this meeting's going along. I just want to, we do want to have this conversation, we do want to push through, we want to listen to it all, or is there, basically, the only reason we're going to be listening to this is if there is support to change the speed limit back. If there's not support to move it back, then we really don't have to go through it. Do you want to go through this, or do you want to?
I would like to go through it.
Okay. Sound good? Okay. So, Deputy Mayor, you had asked for this to be added to the agenda?
You had marked it.
That was marked it, okay. Commissioner Caruso, would you like to start off, or do you just want to hear?
No, I'd rather just hear the chief. I heard he had discussions with him, and I want to take his recommendations and go from there.
First and foremost, good evening again, Mayor, Commissioners, Deputy Mayor, City Manager. I put together a brief presentation regarding the speed study on Winter Springs Boulevard. So there's a few things that we want to talk about as the history of how we got to where we are, what the roadway's like, and what actually the speed data and crash data is for Winter Springs Boulevard. All right, so the history, back in September of 2022, we presented a traffic calming presentation. And during that presentation was one of the first discussions we had about the speed limit on Winter Springs Boulevard. There was concerns that were brought up due to the influx of traffic coming in from Oviedo, traveling down Winter Springs Boulevard to Tuscola Road. At that time, it was recommended that we conduct all the improvements during that traffic calming presentation before any speed limit changes were made to see what was happening. Fast forward to March of '23, a formal recommendation was made to change the speed limit from 30 to 25. And during that same meeting, again, I recommended, let's wait for the improvements. We were going to do some major improvements on Winter Springs Boulevard. It was going to be part of a $1.7 million project, road resurfacing, restriping, raised crosswalks, and traffic calming devices. But that recommendation was essentially overruled, and the speed limit was changed. June 19th, 2023 was the official change date from the 30 to the 25. And then fast forward a little bit after that, October 9th of 23, a motion was made by the commission at that time to reverse that decision and bring it back to 30, which that vote failed. So that's a little bit of the history on Winter Springs Boulevard. Let's talk essentially about Winter Springs Boulevard. It's a two-lane divided roadway that's divided by a large median. There's no other road in the city that is like Winter Springs Boulevard. The area that we're specifically talking about is from Tuscaloosa Road east to the city limits towards Oviedo. That's the only place that we've conducted this study. We did not do anything into Oak Forest. It was just mainly the Tuscaloosa side. It's roughly 3 miles long, has 3 stop signs, 3 different intersections of Northern Way. In the police world, we call it Northern Way West, Northern Way Central, Northern Way East. There are newly enhanced striping that you all are familiar with, and the raised crosswalks, and then the speed table over by Sam Smith Park. If you look at this slide, you'll see that there's a pyramid type of all different types of defined roadways. Winter Springs Boulevard is classified as a collector road, which is a larger road than the local roads. Winter Springs is used by many to travel and then branch off into the neighborhoods in Winter Springs Boulevard. It does have a heavy population, we've heard that earlier today, of pedestrian traffic, bikes, dog walkers, runners, etc., all day and even at night. On the hierarchy of roads, when we talk about our lowest roads, which have our lowest speed limits, are our local roads. The neighborhood roads are 20, 25 miles an hour. Collector roads can be 25, 30, can be 45 miles an hour essentially. And then arterial roads like Tuscaloosa Road would be an arterial road. And then our highways, 434, 417, stuff like that. On the bottom of that slide, you'll see there's a little asterisk about the 85th percentile. That's going to come into play, but prior to any changes that were done, we presented the 85th percentile speeds on Winter Springs Boulevard, and that was over a large period of time between 2015 and 2023, and that speed, that 85th percentile speed, was 31.18. So let's talk about the 85th percentile. If you're not familiar, 85th percentile is the speed which at the drivers are driving or below to gather a safe speed for that roadway. Florida Department of Transportation uses an 85th percentile range to determine speed limits and what's a safe speed limit for that kind of roadway. People traveling above the 85th percentile would be considered traveling above the safe posted speed limit, what that road can handle. As I said before, when it was 30 miles an hour from 2015 to 2023, the 85th percentile speed, which was an average of all those years, was 31.18 miles per hour. When it moved to 25 miles an hour, we did the study. We did 2 different styles of studies. From January to February 2025, we did what's called blind testing. These are testings, speed testings, where the residents or the motorists didn't know an actual speed study was being conducted. We have partnered with a company where we can use software that receives that kind of data, and it's pretty impressive. We were able to test both eastbound and westbound lanes of Winter Springs Boulevard. Eastbound, which would be going towards Oviedo, came out at a 32 mile an hour 85th percentile, and westbound was 31.8 miles per hour. In the speed study realm, obviously we know that a blind test is probably going to be a more accurate test because the residents or the motorists simply don't know they're being tested and they're going to drive the way they drive. The other test is we did speed trailers. Those are the smart trailers that flash your speeds and give you a warning that you're speeding. We put those out from March 25th to March 31st of this year. The eastbound speed trailer registered 29.99 and the westbound registered 28.51 miles per hour. So the change of speed limit has roughly been about 1 year, 8 months since the time we've presented this presentation. We looked at the crash data as well. At 25 miles an hour, we handled 2 crashes, and at 30, during that same 1 year, 8 month previous time frame, we handled 18 crashes. What's important to know, though, those crashes, 99% of all those crashes happened at intersections, mainly the stop signs on Winter Springs Boulevard. Distracted driving, not paying attention, for whatever the reasons are, but none were speed-related crashes. And I'm glad to say that none of those crashes resulted in serious bodily injury as well. So we did not have any major issues there. That is the facts when it comes to the speeds in the 85th percentile on Winter Springs Boulevard. I can tell you the road can handle 25 and the road can handle 30 miles per hour. 30 miles per hour has been the speed for the last 30 years prior to this change, and we have not had any issues. I know it's not a popular topic. I know it's a sensitive topic. I'm not going to give you my opinion on what the road should be. You guys are the legislative body for the city, and you can make that decision. It's my job for you to have that data and make an informed decision with that data. Any questions?
Okay, if we can use our buttons. Appreciate it. I'd like to go. Deputy Mayor? No? Nobody?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bruce?
Has there been a significant increase in traffic tickets since this new speed limit proposal?
So when significant, I don't know how significant it is. I can tell you that between that 1 year and several months, we have written 280 traffic tickets or citations, well, not citations, tickets, combination of warnings and citations in that period. That's that data.
So for the past year and 8 months, we've written 280
280.
tickets, warnings or citations.
Just specifically on Winter Springs Boulevard. And those could be stop sign violations, speed violations, can't maintain a signal, though, can't maintain a lane, et cetera.
Thank
You,
I don't necessarily have a question. It's, I guess, more of a comment. As Mr. Nealon mentioned, I live on Winter Springs Boulevard. There's not many houses directly on Winter Springs Boulevard like mine. And the area that I particularly live only has 2 houses. I have a small child that's on the spectrum, and I've never had a problem with speeding on my road. I've never had a problem with excessive traffic on my road. I do understand that there is more traffic probably than what there was 20 years ago, just because there's more people. I think that the traffic calming things that we did, we took the lane down from 14 feet to 11 feet. We widened the bike lane to be safer. We added the crosswalks, so on and so forth. I think there might have even been a little bit of precursor to seeing that this might happen, because the signs weren't even changed. They're stickers that are put over top of the 25 miles an hour. So I think it was very, I think it was done a little prematurely, that we should have probably paid attention to the study that we did and the money that we put into that, those changes. But I'm also hearing from residents of the community that they would prefer it to be 25. So it puts me in a strange situation, being that I personally live on the street and don't see some of the things that other people are seeing. But that's just kind of a comment I wanted to have for the dice.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Following that comment, so I have been here a long time. I did start in Tuscarora. Argumentatively, I don't think much has changed since I moved here in 2001. Tuscarora's pretty much been built out for that long. So you're 30 years. I know one lady came up early, Ms. Freeburn came up earlier and said, you know, things have changed. The issue I have with things have changed from Oviedo into Winter Springs is people who are working in Oviedo then come through Oviedo back into Winter Springs. When the argument was made that we needed to do this, you know, stealing something from staff, this is our annual, what do we do on Winter Springs Boulevard meeting. The second time the conversation was, well, we've got to do this because those apartments are being built in Oviedo and everybody's going to come up Winter Springs Boulevard and go to 417. My argument to that is, no, they're not. They're going to drive right and turn right and go straight onto 417 and go the way they want to go, because that makes a whole lot more sense. It's also shorter. I sat at the Oviedo Exchange a couple times since this came up, just to sit there for about 30 minutes, early in the morning, later in the evening. I didn't see the backup that Ms. Freeburn says. I saw people moving. There's a stop sign there. People were moving. So to me, the speed conversation is very different than the, hey, Oviedo's coming here conversation, right? Second to that, if Oviedo is coming here, Mr. Nealon's over here, so I'm going to pick on you for a second, sir. He's going to want us to shop at his store. We have an 8% commercial rate through the whole city. Anybody we can get in here to buy something would be great, right? So I see both sides of that. You said, Commissioner Baker, you say, 30 miles an hour versus other people saying 25 for safety purposes. Those roads are wider. I've been riding my bike, and yes, I have to take it in my car, drive it down there because I am that lazy, but I've been driving my bike up and down there. I don't know how fast those people are going, but I didn't feel unsafe riding down the street there. So my argument to the people who are saying we should keep it 25 strictly for safety, I feel safe. You feel safe.
Yes.
Others that I've spoken to feel safe. I think it's more of a comfort thing. It's just drive slower, feel comfortable that you're not going to get hit. That's, maybe it goes to safety. So, like you said, it's a tough decision to make, but I try to do my research and test it out to see where I would feel on that.
Yes, and us as well, we receive the same information. There's a side that's pro 25 and there's a side that's pro 30. We're stuck in the middle.
And there's some that are pro both.
Yeah, there's some that want to make it 50.
Yeah, I mean, there's a section down to Tuscaloosa that is there's a lot of houses and they're much closer to the street. A compromise might even be in order of where the majority of the street is 30 up until you get to where there's dense housing. I don't know. It's just, there's.
Whatever decision's made tonight will not be the right decision. I can promise you that.
Exactly.
If I can, I'll take a turn at this. First, we had, I think what I'll start with, this. Every time we bring this up, and whether it's the fourth time or the fifth time, as Dr. Markey said, that this commission keeps bringing this up. Nobody's ever happy. Everybody gets all worked up. And somebody puts it back up, and I'm not, we're creating divisiveness amongst the community every time we have this conversation. And what I'm asking my first point is that whatever decision we make, let's stick with it and not stop this. It's creating divisive conversations. Okay, so now moving on with that.
I second that, by the way.
Yeah. We're just going round and round and round. Okay, first. We know that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apartments being built at the end of Winter Springs Boulevard, that the developer has said he'd like access, but that's not going to have whatever. But there is going to be further development in the Oviedo side. It will be coming. It will continue to come. There are GPS consequences for having 25 versus 30. When you enter it in and you say you're trying to go to Publix, if the speed limit's 25 miles an hour, it may steer certain trips one way. Mm-hmm. If it's 30, it steers you, through Winter Springs Boulevard. That was one of the points that was made. I do hear 2 crashes when it was over a year-long period when it was 25 miles an hour, and 18 crashes when it was 30 miles an hour cannot be ignored. Then we heard the gentleman talking about the fatality rates going from 25 to 30 doubles. And if you go from 30 to 40, it goes to 60%. You can't deny some of those numbers. As a father who had a son hit by a car in Tuscaloosa, no parent wants to come up on the scene that I did. You don't want to do that. The drive from Oviedo to Tuscaloosa Road is 3 miles long, somebody said. The difference is a minute. It's going to be an extra minute, 1 minute, to drive that 3 miles with keeping it low. Is that really going to build business or hurt business or make any real impacts? We know it'll have one impact. It substantially lowers the fatality rate if our children are hit. It substantially raises the response time for drivers. I have not heard, other than a couple, literally tonight, I have not heard all of my residents, and I was a former president of the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association. We had Family Fun Day last weekend. It was a wonderful event. Some of you showed up. Thanks for being there. All I heard over and over and over and over and over again is don't change, protect our streets, protect our neighborhood, protect our neighborhood, protect our neighborhood. That's all I heard. Protect what we have. Whatever we do, guys, let's not divide the community and keep bringing this up over and over and over again. That's my piece. I'll let you folks vote on it. I don't see the wisdom myself, but.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Just so we're kind of comparing apples to apples when it comes to the crash data. The previous crash data from 2015 to 2023, that's all collected prior to the enhancements that were made on Winter Springs Boulevard. So the enhancements themselves could have had a big impact on reducing those crashes.
Fair.
I know it's not something that we normally do in Winter Springs, but is this possible to put on a ballot to allow our citizens to vote so we are not making this decision?
The problem is most of the people that allowed it, now, look, I know that there's exceptions, and I know that, you live on Winter Springs Boulevard, and then I can see Mr. Greenberg kind of he's shaking his head. Look, the majority of the folks that this will help don't live in Tuscaloosa. The people who use it as a drive-through, that this is gonna help, don't live there. The people who live there as a whole, from my anecdotal point of view, don't want that to change. The people who live there don't want it to go up. As a whole, that is, again, I use the word anecdotal, right? That's my anecdotal point of view, okay? So if we put it on a ballot, we let all the residents of Winter Springs, if you want to put it on the ballot in Tuscaloosa, that's a whole different, I'd be for that.
I don't
But I think I know how it
It'd be
would
a
go.
citywide.
Even at 30 miles an hour, I wouldn't drive through it just as a cut through. Man, that's way too slow. I'd go 45 on the other roads.
She's a proponent of the 50.
Yeah, I'm
434 flying that way.
At any rate, so, where do we go? Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then a motion. No. Sorry, that was why everybody did it earlier. It's not, during the public hearing agenda, we have public input on each one, but not on the regular agenda, just so everyone understands. There will be after, because hopefully we're moving along. So, if there's a motion to be made, we've had a lively debate, if there's a motion to be made. So, hearing no motion, the conversation was lively.
I think we should take it.
Okay, no one's making the motion?
Make
Okay.
a motion for that? Or
Nobody, well, I'm asking, is anybody going to
I'll
make the motion?
I'll make a motion to table it.
Yeah, I would say let's not keep stirring up our
Yeah,
residents over
no, I
this.
think if anything, we just need to talk to the residents more in our constituents, not necessarily have more discussion here.
Wow. Okay, so the motion dies if there's not, or then the discussion is over. Okay. Moving on. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. And that brings us to item 501, discussion of section 2-413 City Code about animals. I think we're talking chickens. And who would like to start that conversation? I know.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I put together something and passed it out to everybody. I looked at a handful of different cities as well as the county's chicken program. And right now, we really don't have anything that prohibits them in PUDs, but we do have it in the ordinances to prohibit them in residential areas. So what I did is I looked at Seminole County. I looked at about a dozen other cities throughout Florida, Jacksonville being one of the most recent ones and also one of the most progressive as far as sustainability and promoting residents to have a more independent life. So I just kind of put together just some ideas on how we could mandate this or change it for us. And I put together, just some requirements as far as taking classes from UF or other online areas. Would roosters be allowed with this program in residential? No. How many chickens, hens would you be able to keep on property? I did a sliding scale based on how much land each homeowner has. What are the housing requirements? This goes off of what, I guess not Humane Society, but whoever comes up with the requirements for what is best for poultry. And that gives you, a certain amount of square foot per bird inside their coop, a certain amount of square feet per bird inside of their chicken run, where the coops and runs should be located on the property, requirements for building permits if the coops are over a certain size, height limits, so on and so forth, and then just questions like, can I allow my hens to free range? I went into detail about disease and predators, as well as not being able to free range without, tall fences or unsupervised, not being able. There's a lot more I could have added to this. I ran out of time, but it gives us kind of a working starting point, should it be something we would like to move forward with.
Anyone else like to go next?
She hit the nail on the head.
All right. If nobody else, I would agree with setbacks. I think that there needs to be setbacks. I think that, I don't know, and Chief, I don't know if, I got a couple questions. I don't know if you can help with this.
Let me get my chicken notes.
Right? I guess I'm worried, what if, look, and I have two neighbors who butt up against my fence line that both have chickens. I don't mind.
Right.
I don't have any problem with it.
My neighbors
right?
love them.
But
yeah.
We got a rooster behind
they're
me.
responsible
Yeah,
neighbors, whatever, right? I don't hear them, I don't see them usually, whatever, right? I don't smell them, and we don't have pest problems. What if the smells? My sister had 50 of the things, and it was awful.
Oh, yeah.
You got
I think that's definitely something that's.
I know,
yeah.
but I'm just saying the smell can be awful.
It can, which is, I think, a big point of why I put the amount of hens per half acre per 1 acre.
I guess what I'm getting at is, A, how do we enforce smell? Can we in any way enforce smell?
Can't now. They're always going to smell.
Right, you're
Anthony, have
They're
you
always
heard
gonna smell.
anything in past
I don't
experience
smell
with
mine.
smells
You
or odors?
Well, when you're up close, you're going to
Well,
smell them.
Yeah.
There may be something in the Seminole County Animal Ordinance that covers that in the chicken program. I'm not familiar with it off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it would probably fall under sanitary conditions. And I think as one of the things I didn't get to on here was tips on backyard keeping, and it covers smell as one of those things. So teaching people the proper way to clean up after them, how frequent it should be done, and so on and so forth. And that's going to help with pest and disease and smell and all of the things.
Which then leads to my next question. What about, is there some form of code enforcement? Because they do breed rats and mice and things. They absolutely do. How do we enforce that?
There's definitely health safety issues there, and I think you need to draft an ordinance that is very specific to your land size, what you can and can't have, and how you need to maintain it, and the cleanliness, et cetera, needs to be put into that ordinance.
Yeah, one of the things that keeps rats at bay would be not leaving feed out overnight, having it secured in a metal container or in a building. So I think all of those things need to be very specific in the ordinance. And this might not be a popular opinion, I don't know, but I think I will agree with Paul on this, that with government, less is more. I don't know that it's necessary to have permits for chickens, just because it seems like an unnecessary step and unnecessary work for our body of employees here. But I do think that under code, it needs to have pretty strict guidelines.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I know about chickens is I eat them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay, another question then.
Do you like Kentucky Fried?
Yeah, okay, so we just had a recent case before, and I don't want to go into the details too much, other than for code enforcement, where there has been some people taking advantage. And that's where we get into the problem.
Yes.
Where they play a legal game, they say, okay, well, these are my 4 hens, but all the other ones are my pets, and I'm allowed to have X number of pets. So these are my pets, these are my hens. Can we draft, maybe this is for Anthony, can we draft something that stops that kind of abuse? And then the other thing is I think we all agree, absolutely no roosters. But there are people in the city that have roosters, and then they don't understand why people are complaining. We open this door. I say, if we go down this path, things like having a rooster, I think we should make the penalties harsh.
yeah.
And like, if you're gonna abuse your neighbors where they have to deal with this for years and they keep filing complaint, and you're playing games pets versus, and you're playing all these legal games, or if you're having roosters or you have these problems, I think.
Yeah,
we
I
should
think-
can we do that? Can we can we cut that loophole out? The pets versus.
It's already in our ordinance now.
It is?
About pets, yeah. You
Okay.
cannot have chickens as pets.
Okay.
And as far as the roosters go, like, I think one of the problems that a lot of residents that have chickens come up on when they have a rooster is when you purchase, say, chickens at Tractor Supply, they come as straight run, which means you don't know what you're going to get until they lay an egg or when they grow. And then a lot of people don't know what to do with their rooster.
And they
So
they don't want to put it down.
they don't want to put it down because it's become a
that's-
pet. So I think as part of this, you give them guidance on how to purchase just hens, and how to find places to get rid of their roosters, whether it be sanctuaries, farms that are made for roosters, which there are some here in Central Florida. And give them options, because if they've grown attached to this animal, they obviously aren't going to want to send it to an auction that might do cockfighting or something. So that's not fun for anybody that loves an animal. But I think having what I built this guideline off of was the Seminole County and Jacksonville and several other states, which is basically a how to have chickens in our city. And it's the dumbed down version of laying out what the rules are and giving them all of the facts of raising chickens, but then in the ordinances, make it very clear what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
2 things. One, as we move forward with this, I think it's going to be important for us to contact HOAs and let them know ahead of time if this is what we're going to do. And the reason I say that is because then all of a sudden there'll be chickens in houses and it's hard to get rid of them. Not houses, but on properties. Secondly, to what everybody's saying with code, I don't know how many of you deal with phone calls from code, but I deal with quite a few phone calls. They told me no. They said I couldn't. How come I can't? So as soon as we do this and somebody breaks the rules, this is like having dogs, like having cats, like having something where they're going to get told no. We had somebody come in last week and say, well, I was told no and now I'm not happy. We have to make this, we have an ability to make this ordinance well-written enough. Maybe we look at Oviedo, who seems to have a history of this. Maybe we look at some of the others. But unlike you, who has a big amount of property and nobody's
Correct.
hearing them, a lot of people with smaller properties are going to be like, oh, cool, this is something for me that's new, but not take care of it. So to me, it's not the it's the unintended consequences of what we need to look at. So although, I'm not a fan of this, but if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's take our time to do
Yeah,
it, and then let the HOAs know.
What about like condos? Then they have a screened-in lanai. Are they allowed to
That
have
is,
chickens?
that's actually something I addressed in here, that it would be single-family homes only, no
She did
apartments,
say that.
condos, multifamily homes. Yeah,
Boy,
I
living next
addressed
door.
everything I could think of.
Okay.
And as far as HOAs go, HOAs typically have a no chicken policy already on their books, and HOA overrides city. So, most.
Wildwood does it in Warm Springs.
Right.
Meadowlark Although they don't have an HOA, they have certain.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, we don't enforce HOA laws.
Exactly. So that's all I'm saying is that if an HOA has it on their books, they would trump what the city allows.
But you have
Okay.
to sue the person, and that gets all loads of mix.
So I guess the bottom line is this is a discussion, we weren't necessarily going to vote on this. Are we going to give the city staff and city attorney direction to draw up something, or are we going to leave this alone, I guess I'm looking for some kind of direction, clear direction by the commission of what we're asking, who to do what.
City staff to look into it, maybe
Make
see what
recommendations.
see what other cities do, maybe mirror what they do. I mean, her rules here are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I would like to point out, big difference between being in the county and being in the city. That means you got a lot more, like, the county is different.
Yeah.
We don't want to go by what the county does.
No,
We
and I
wanna do what
didn't. I went
yeah.
off of more city stuff.
Yeah, right, okay, so
Everybody
is that
would
the
have-
general consensus? Do you want to move forward with this? Commissioner Diaz, you're saying?
No,
stay on it?
I mean, my position would be, why don't we try something a little different than instead of trying to overregulate our citizens, we try freedom. It's a really catchy thing. And just let people own what they want on their property and let them use their best judgment. And, I mean, at that point, it's personal responsibility versus trying to tell people what kind of chicken they can have or not. It's interesting, we have these conversations about how rural we want to be. We can't develop a house, we can't develop an apartment complex, we can't develop a shopping center, you can't cut down a tree. But, oh my goodness, let's go nuts if we hear a rooster. That's the end of the world. When, quite frankly, I mean, I grew up in an urban area my whole life in a large city, and I've lived here in Central Florida now for half my life. And quite frankly, I find it quite quaint and nice that someone near me has a rooster, and I hear it in the morning and everything else. I'm like, how pretty cool. There's a rooster. I mean, we want to be so rural. We want to fight rural this, rural that, and then all of a sudden you have a rooster, and it's the end of the world. I think we should just go ahead and repeal the ordinance altogether. So if we want to have a discussion, my discussion would be that the city just repeal it altogether and let folks own what they want to own. And if somebody wants to put a little piglet in their backyard, somebody wants to put one of those little tiny goats that jump around and what have you on a hay bale, go for it. That's called freedom.
And does that extend into speed limits, crime, and everything else? I mean, that's an academic conversation. I'm not being critical, I was just really
No,
like,
Mayor, you know what?
where's that line
It's
end?
personal responsibility, and here, just funny story since the chief is here. During one of the CAC meetings, they were talking about crosswalks, on the trails, and how some folks on the crosswalk don't stop, and then some cars, going the other way don't stop, and, there's a stop sign there. So obviously, there's a sense of personal responsibility. There's a stop sign there. The law says you're supposed to stop, and the other folks kind of going through. And, I mean, the reality is, it's personal responsibility. If a car may be coming, and you are in a vehicle that is probably going to get hit and you're going to get injured, you should probably show some more caution. And sometimes maybe that's just, natural selection. But ultimately, it's a matter of freedom and personal responsibility. And if somebody wants to own a chicken in their backyard, somebody wants to have a rooster in their backyard, you know what? We can't get and have ad nauseum, meetings and emails and all the posts online of how rural we want to be. And then, we need to clutch our pearls because there's a rooster in somebody's backyard. I mean, it's laughable.
So the direction that we're giving the city by majority then, take a look and see and bring
But
something
chickens
back.
only. We don't want to open this up to horses and cows.
Yeah, so, okay.
That's what's
I'd
in
say,
there.
I'd say a skeleton
Is-
ordinance,
It
not a
sounds
full
to me,
detailed.
my appearance up front, and I'm taking basically a survey, it looks like we have a 4-1 vote to take a look at what other municipalities in Central Florida are doing.
Perfect.
Sound good?
Yes, sir.
City Manager, Mr. Sweet, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Understood.
Wonderful. Okay, now we're moving on, right?
Code.
Yeah,
I think I sent you a list of a bunch of cities already, too.
yeah, thanks.
Boards and-
Okay, boards and related matters.
May I?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
getting late.
earlier tonight, you all voted to create the new Parks, Rec, and Mobility Committee. My suggestion is to make all 7 or as many of the appointments as you all would like to make tonight. Remember, there's 5 district seats, 2 at large. My suggestion, unless the attorney is opposed to it, I would go down the line, basically name who you would like to nominate, and then could we just vote on it as a roster, basically?
So if I might make one suggestion, though, and you don't have to follow it, they are your appointments, but my recommendation would be that we simply keep the same 7 people that are on the board.
Well, we
tonight.
don't have 7
Or
currently.
5, right. So
And
we-
it's up to the commission's discretion.
Right, I can't tell the commission, if you want to swap them out, you have that right. But I think in merging it, we have 5 members. I might recommend we keep those same 5 members, but you guys do whatever you want to do. It's your position, it's your,
Or do you want
it's your
7?
appointment to make.
So can we do a roster? Or do we
Sure.
have to do?
I mean, you're proposing like basically an omnibus roster of appointments. Now, each commissioner has a seat. To appoint 1 seat, and then there's 2 at large. So
Correct.
how the clerk wants to present that, I'll leave that to him.
So you want,
So we currently have 2,
Like specific-
4,
right.
4.
let Deputy Mayor?
So out of the group, there's 2 seat 4s.
Correct.
And the one at large is also one of the people that I put on there. So if we go put everybody back, Bob, Tommy, and Leah Weissman, and then the other one is at large. So I don't know if you wanted to just put them all back, but then the one would be under seat 4 and 2 at larges. I don't know where you come in there.
Actually, if there's only 5, then I don't get one.
Right, but 2 of them are,
Yeah.
2
Oh,
of
yeah,
them
I'm
are
with
seat
you.
4, so somebody else needs
Yeah,
to.
yeah, so somebody,
They nominate-
can we all agree to, let the same 5 people continue
Yeah.
to serve?
Okay.
But that would be a nod, and it would take some cooperation amongst us.
I'm
So-
just going to go down the line.
Yep.
Tell me who you would like first for your seat. I guess, if anyone. Commissioner Diaz.
Paul Krebs.
Paul Krebs. Commissioner Bruce.
John Hibbs.
Commissioner Baker.
Jen Hankes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor for seat 4.
Jason Byrne to start with.
And Commissioner Caruso.
One second.
More difficult to nominate somebody for parks than to cut $1 million.
You have somebody for C5?
There was nobody currently serving in seat 5 on either of the
Would you
boards.
like to name
You can pick one of the other people that are at large or seat 4.
No, it could be anybody on that list
You
except for Jason
pick
Byrne
anyone.
so far was taken.
So Leah or Andrew
Leah, Andrew,
or Robert.
Bob, or Melissa
And
Haynes.
then there's another one, too.
Just
So there's
pick
Lee Wiseman, and Brenda Lambie is also interested, and there's a few other
Well, we're looking at the list as well.
applications.
Just pick one. That
Is it
you,
Brenda? Yeah. Brenda.
Brenda who?
Lambie.
Okay.
Then what, Leah?
Okay. So that would be all the district seats. There's then 2 at-large seats to consider.
Okay, so that's where I can step in and do one, correct? No.
No, the commission has to
That-
vote,
they go
but
first,
you can
great.
certainly suggest.
You could suggest.
No, that's all right.
Someone.
I'm just gonna
I'd like
appoint
to
somebody
nominate
else.
Leah Wiseman for it.
I
There you
second
go.
that.
Because she's currently on it.
Yes.
Yes.
Then can I nominate Bob Tommy?
Who was
the
it?
other one? Robert Tommy?
Is he on it?
Already currently
Is
on
he
it.
on it?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
currently on
Okay,
it.
good.
Perfect.
Yes.
Any objection to the deputy mayor taking that? No?
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So what I would be looking for would then be a motion to appoint basically the following people, all in one, right? Paul Krebs to seat 1, John Hibbs to seat 2, Jen, was it Hankes?
Hankes.
Hankes to seat 3, Jason Byrne to seat 4, Brenda Lambie to seat 5, Leah Wiseman to the at-large seat 1, and Robert Tommy to the at-large seat 2, all on the Parks, Rec, and Mobility Committee.
Okay, so we
So moved.
need that motion.
I make that motion.
Made
As
by the
presented.
deputy mayor, second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Baker. Christian?
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Great, I have one question. Did anyone not make it back on?
Yes.
Andrew Zacharias.
Yes.
Okay, two?
Melissa Haney and Andrew
Oh,
Zacharias.
yeah, and Melissa.
The commission has that right.
Those two.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your appointment. You have the right. Okay.
There is, I don't know if anybody wants to make it. There's one other vacant, well, only Commissioner Bruce could make it, actually. There is one other vacancy that currently exists. It is on the code board. I informed you, we learned recently that one of the members, Mr. Thompson, recently passed away, unfortunately. So a vacancy has arisen on the code board. I don't know if you have anybody, but,
Are there any applications currently?
so there are, hold on.
I missed that until I read that today. Can I put that off to the next meeting to nominate someone?
Yes, that'll still be within the 30 days.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure you have all the,
Thank you so much, yes.
Any other matters related to boards and committees?
No.
No? Then we will move on to new business. Anyone? Ooh, no new business.
Let's move straight on.
Hey, hey, we'll move right past that then, and, great, go straight to reports.
City Manager.
Good evening, just a few updates. With regards to the request for qualifications, the RFQ for the city operational and maintenance of the water and waste, water and sewer plants were due this past Friday. 3 companies submitted proposals. The proposals will be reviewed and scored by the review committee with the recommendation to engage in negotiations at a future commission meeting. G Creek Bank Stabilization Project near South Moss Road and Dolphin Road kicked off today. Staff has been working with both contractors and the police department to coordinate both projects to minimize traffic impacts on both South Edgemont Ave and South Moss Road, which includes the Lift Station 7 West Construction Project, which is also underway on South Edgemont Ave. What else is? April is Water Conservation Month. We'll be promoting water conservation tips for our residents online as well as our social media channels. And I mentioned prior that both the invitation to bid for creek debris removal services as well as creek sediment removal services have been advertised, with debris removal service May 9th and the following week on the sediment removal closing on May 16th. Lastly, the only other thing I want to take an opportunity to express is our condolences to the City of Oviedo Police Department on the loss of Officer Jimmy Serrano Torres, who tragically passed away on Friday. So our condolences to them and their team. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anthony.
No report.
I have no report. Who did I put next? Commissioner Diaz.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to congratulate the Girl Scouts that came in today to speak. I've been working with them on this project, and we had information go out to the city, and just wanted to thank the city manager for working with us on that. And we got some neat things that are going to come over to Dolphin and Moss, and we'll look forward to seeing that, as well as having them come out. I think civic duty and coming out to your city commission and speaking on topics that are important. Obviously, these topics were important. These girls are working on their bronze badge for the Girl Scouts. They asked me to work with them on kind of how government works and how the city government works, and how that would come together. And today was part of that program for them, and they did a great job. And I just wanted to congratulate them publicly. And last but not least, just wanted to kind of remind everybody that, freedom isn't free, and a lot of it comes at a cost. In this case here, while we're up here, comes at the cost of money. There's a lot that is discussed, on the dais, and obviously it all costs money, and we have to find ways to generate that revenue. When we had our wastewater workshops, I suggested about 10, 12, 13 different ways where wastewater plants could generate revenue. Revenue that could actually eliminate a water bill. Revenues that could exceed what we collect in water fees. Obviously, that would be a great help to many residents. Close to half of our residents are on fixed incomes, and many cannot handle some of the violent swings that we may be looking at in the future. So just wanted to put it out there that, there's a discussion to be had. If we're too far along on the east plant, there's still time in the west plant to be able to go ahead and look at more modern options, including selling capacity to neighboring cities, which obviously would generate revenue as well. A lot of conversation is on what is going to be cut, but also there should be a lot of conversation on how we can modernize to generate more revenue and generate more efficiency out of what we have. Part of my conversations have been underutilized assets. I think it's something that we do not look at as often as we should. We're sitting in an underutilized asset right now. Other cities have sold their city halls and leased their city halls, Altamont being one of them. And I don't think anybody here would say that Altamont's poorly managed, but this is prime real estate, for example, so they could be generating a lot of tax revenue for the city and be something beautiful versus an 80s era Soviet style architecture that we have on prime real estate. So again, there's a lot of conversations that we could be having that we're not. And I encourage everyone to kind of think outside the box as we start getting now into the budget time. And then last but not least, just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to have breakfast with Grover Norquist. Those of you that don't know Mr. Norquist, he's definitely the top mind and advocate for responsible taxation in this country. And he's probably been most responsible for actually keeping some of the federal rates more under control than what they had been in the past. We had a really good conversation about federal, state, and local tax policy, and really glad I had that opportunity, and look forward to seeing what we can do with the governor, who has so graciously offered his help to help us, as we get now closer into the budget. So just wanted to kind of bring up some points that the residents that are watching can think about. And obviously, it's stuff that we could talk about over the next few weeks and as we get closer to the budget. Thank you, folks.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes. Last week, I had a great meeting with the City of Sanford and their Public Works, had a boardroom meeting, about 10 people, and we discussed Site 10, which is over 1,500 acres on the north end of Lake Jessup that's currently being used for reclaimed water and cattle farm. And so there's a program called the Water Quality Enhancement Area that recently was passed in 2022. There's still rulemaking, but I just wanted to approach Sanford to understand about the program for water quality and an economic incentive for the city, number one. Number two, on May 1st, City Manager Kevin Sweet and I will be meeting with Hacienda Village residents May 1st at 8 a.m. to go over their concerns, give them assurances, and maybe find out some challenges that we're not aware of, and if not, try to address those and give them assurances. In addition, Earth Day is April 22nd, and that is when our trees will start being delivered, and so look out for those. In addition, I spoke with the city manager today regarding our checkbook, and it's going to be revised in the future to account for all expenses up to $2,500 instead of $20,000, which it is at currently. And last but not least, I did attend your the Tuscarora Association event. Was pretty impressive. They had a helicopter deliver food and a police dog demonstration from the police department. We currently have one police dog who actually goes home at night with a policeman that's appointed to this dog, and it was a wonderful demonstration, and it was a great resource that the city has in the event that is needed. And that's my report.
Commissioner Baker.
I don't have very much. The CalNo meeting was earlier this month, and thank you, Mr. Gallo, for coming. We don't get to see many people in the audience at those CalNo meetings, but this time they discussed stormwater and a lot of different projects that they're working on in Longwood for their stormwater, rebuilding banks, putting in new culverts, piping down roads, and they're getting a lot, and how they funded all of these projects. So I did send a recap to let everybody know what the what funds they were getting and how to get them and whatnot. So it was a very informative meeting. And then I attended the eggs. What did we call it? The exciting egg hunt with my son. It was his last year allowed to do it. He's 12 and he loved it. And all the vendors there were great. And there was he stopped and played Jenga for a while, and food was great from the vendors that were there as well. We had a great time. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Forward Thinking, Fish Winter Springs came out today, so hopefully people sign up. I know that I tried to sign up for one of the dates and was already full by 9:30 as soon as it opened, so lots of excitement coming ahead. So that's good for us and whoever likes to do that. I did attend PBAS where the city manager was speaking. Good, sir. It was good to see you there, and enjoyed what you had to say. Also enjoyed what all the other cities had to say. It's good that we are all now starting to connect as a group and really starting to make things work. It's been a while since we saw that. Family Fun Day at Tuscarora. So to all of those, Kurt left, but to you, thanks everybody for having me and my family there. It was really a good time. They had a car show there. For those of you who haven't been there, some of those cars were very impressive. So it was definitely a good time. And meeting with lots of people. A couple days ago was Passover. Easter's coming up, so hopefully everybody in Winter Springs, regardless of faith, is having a good time and enjoying the way you're supposed to enjoy. And these, to me, are also family events, so it brings family together. So hopefully everybody is finding ways to do that. And then just, one thing, to add just to something Mr. Nealon said, and I think he's still here. You ask, is a fee a tax? Is a tax a fee? And I've said that for a long time. Anything government collects is a tax. I agree with you. The problem is we don't have a commercial offset, and I've repeated that multiple times to people. We were designed with far too many houses and not enough of a commercial offset. So even if we put only commercial back in place now, we still wouldn't have enough of a commercial offset to eventually reach a plateau where the way cities are designed with a 3% homestead, there's going to be fees increasing. It's the way we are set up as a city. Say it was poorly designed, say whatever you want, we're a home, we're a bedroom community, that's the way we're going to work. So I would love to find ways to make the future work. So for those of you who are smarter than I, those of you who are listening who are smarter than I, that can look at the budget, can see a budget in ways that our staff can't see it, I can't see it, please come let me know how we're going to survive cutting. Beyond that conversation, Ms. Nealon, you're here, so you kind of sparked it in my head. You're right, fees and taxes and taxes and fees. Even if you've got a way, call me. We'll figure it out. Thank you. And that's my...
Commissioner Caruso.
Two small things. One, I'm sad to see that Faux Alak has closed their doors. They've been in our community for some time now, and their food was amazing. It is sad that they closed. I don't know the reasons why, but going back to what you said, we need the commercial, and they played a role in our community. We use their facility for a lot of events. They always sponsored city, anything that we had to do. So they will be missed. Second, this is extremely important to me. Tomorrow I have my meeting with Snockwater, so if anyone would like to know the details of the meeting, you can reach out to me tomorrow. I'd be more than happy to give you anything that I get. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Mayor.
Okay, real short, yes, also attended the Professional Business Association of Seminole breakfast meeting where the city manager did a great job bragging on the city of Winter Springs and kind of a little update for the rest of Seminole County and other leaders about what he's kind of made priorities, having still been somewhat new. Great job, Mr. Sweet. Yeah, and the Family Fun Day was great. That really is, I'll tell you, that one of those, it was the first board that I, well, not the first, but it was a board that I put some work and energy into and volunteered for Tuscarora Homeowners Association. And, that really is a wonderful organization. They are a huge supporter of the police department, from kids' toys at Christmas, right? Shop with a Cop. They make, for many, many years, over a decade, I believe, they've made substantial contributions to that program. They help pay for Max, the canine, with a generous donation of thousands of dollars towards Max and his training. They supply Indian Trails with food bank, food. They do a lot of work. It's not they are nonpartisan. They do not endorse candidates. They are convinced they will not do that. And they are about service. It's a community working for the community. And I'm proud to be associated with them. They are a group of friends that work together to hold events like Family Fun Day. And I think that they've done a really nice job. And although they may form an opinion on a particular item that's up for vote, they will not endorse a candidate or get involved in something outside of their control, if that makes sense. And I think it's a wonderful organization, and yeah, really happy to be associated with them, even if it's at a distance now. They do a nice job. It's a wonderful community. All of Winter Springs, we've built something really wonderful here, folks. And I'm proud to sit in this seat is the biggest compliment of my life. And although we have lively debates, and I think that somebody said we all carry. So somebody got up and said this is the best day he's seen. We are all passionate, and I think things might get a little heated because we care so much. We have so much to be proud of, and with that, public input. Your turn to say whatever you'd like to say.
Can I just say one quick thing before that
Yeah.
starts? Vision Source opened officially today, so I just wanted to give them a
Oh,
shout out.
cool. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, good. Yeah, right there, and right behind McDonald's, the Vision Source, the eye doctor. Hello.
Hi, my name is Joan Jansen. I live at 211 Cottonwood Drive. I want to address the commission regarding item number 301. Administrations come and go. Pressure can be applied by from all kinds of places to all kinds of places. The commission will be pressured, you individually may be pressured, the police department gets pressured, individual policemen get pressured. I think it's always most important to do the right thing, and I know that we would, have different opinions about that. And I'm really sorry that there are people who have been pressured with lawsuits and whatever to do certain civil things, like sign agreements or not sign agreements. I commend Commissioner Baker for all of her comments, and I'm just really disappointed that the majority of the board agreed to sign the agreement.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Gallo.
Evening, Art Gallo, 199 Nandina Terrace. I'm glad you signed the agreement for 301. But I was interested, I did enjoy the conversation. There's more than one side to every story. Concerning the discussion on changing the city code on chickens, Please, as you research the new code, as I said before, I live in an HOA. At best, our lot sizes are a quarter acre, probably smaller than that. We have to honor our covenants and restrictions. So no matter what you permit in the city, the HOAs, you have to allow the HOAs to follow the covenants and restrictions. Chickens in my community wouldn't work, especially if there's a rooster there. Anyway, I would hope that you do that. And on the board, changing the board commission, combining it with the, I don't have a problem with any of combining the Parks and Rec and the mobility. But I do remember the conversation, how concerned the dais was about not removing any of the previous members. I don't know who's on it, and I don't know if anyone got removed. But if anyone did get removed, that goes against the conversation that you all had months ago, as a reminder. And I also want to compliment Ms. Terrellin Roll, who's been awesome and very patient, because I ask a lot of probably dumb questions, but she's very prompt in getting back to me, and I think she's a tremendous asset to the city, and I'm glad she's here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thanks again. And again, I just want to say I'm really proud of this board. It's one of the best that I've seen. And all I ask as you go forward and in making your decisions going forward, whether it's the chicken coop or I'm more, less government's more for me. I don't like a government body. I would never live in an HOA. I live in Tuscaloosa. I bought property that was 5 acres, was not part of the HOA. I made sure I bought that. Where I'm at now is 5 acres. My property says I can have 5 horses. It says I can have chickens. I will never have a chicken, because if that thing roosted in the morning, I would have it for dinner that night. So I wouldn't do that. But that's me. I just don't want somebody telling me I can't have it. That's all I'm asking. So as you go through and start making your decisions over the years, all I ask is that you please make less impacting decisions on government. Less is more. Thanks.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll end public input, and we are adjourned.